Nazi. Before that, Fellows was among a small percentage of Capitol attack defendants who were held in jail before their trials. He's been incarcerated since July of 2021 with a sentencing hearing scheduled for February 29th. Prosecutors are seeking 37 months in prison, with sentencing guidelines ranging from 30 to 37 months of incarceration. If his sentencing were to be delayed for several more months, as Fellows has requested, he could end up serving more time behind bars than he would ultimately be sentenced to, and potentially even more than the 3 years sought by prosecutors. Delaying sentencing further, prosecutors wrote in a filing Thursday, is not in the interests of justice, but given his statement during a hearing on December the 13th, 2023, that he was in no rush to proceed to sentencing, remaining incarcerated may be the defendant's goal. And
wow. Let's go on to the next one. British aristocrat Isabel Thomas falls to her death at a hotel. This is a very interesting story, David. Apparently, she knew she's a British aristocrat, wife of a Hollywood film producer, and a former advisor to David Cameron. She's died in an apparent suicide at the age of 39. Investigators believe that Isabel Thomas jumped from a high-up floor on Monday night at the Hotel Angelino, according to the Los Angeles Medical Examiner's Office. The Los Angeles Coroner's Office has listed the manner of death as suicide, with the official cause as multiple traumatic injuries consistent with a major fall. Thomas was discovered dead at the scene at the West Los Angeles Hotel by first responders. Legal documents also confirm the place of the death as the hotel. The celebrity news website TMZ quoted law enforcement sources as saying she left no note. Her husband is Bradley Thomas, 58, producer of the Oscar-nominated Killers of the Flower Moon, with whom she had twin daughters, Poppy and Grace, and was stepmother to his older children, Lucy and Charlie. The couple were pictured last month attending the BAFTA Tea Party in Beverly Hills, California, both in Bath to Sir Henry Lawrence VII, Baronet of Lucknow. Isabel Thomas was a graduate of neuroscience from Oxford University. She was a documentary producer in her own right and was a member of the UCLA Center of Storytellers and Scholars Advisory Board. During her childhood, she attended the private King Edward School and Prior Park College in Bath. After graduating from Oxford in 2013, she was appointed by Cameron, then Prime Minister, to his Tech City Advisory Board. Before marrying Thomas, she moonlighted as a DJ at Bougie's Nice Club in South Kensington, West London. The nightclub was popular with the younger members of the royal family, including Prince Harry, Prince William, Princess Eugene, and Princess Beatrice. Once described by the Los Angeles Times as a DJ / model / BBC / TV presenter / Oxford grad, she was also photographed with Amy Winehouse at a charity event in Camden in 2010. Paying tribute to Thomas on Friday, Jamila Jamil, the British actress and television host, wrote on Instagram, "I lost a friend very suddenly this week. Don't wait until later. Don't presume you can just grow old together. Don't presume the world is fair or makes sense. Don't take anyone or anything you love granted for a minute. My heart is completely and utterly broken. I do not think I will recover." There were other deaths as well in the country music venue. Let me just
Toby
make sure.
Keith, I think, died.
Yes, Toby Keith. Toby Keith died. And here's a tweet. It says from this one individual, Steve, "I don't know if you know how amazing Toby Keith was. Toby owned a chain of restaurants called I Love This Bar and Grill. If you were a member of the armed forces and you ate there, a meal and a beer was free on his dime, 365 days a year. Truly a legend."
Yeah. So, yeah, and many people within the country music field are true patriots. They're good people. My wife's first husband was a country music DJ at a local radio station. So my wife had the opportunity to meet a lot of country music stars at concerts, and they were just outstanding people. I think Toby Keith was one of the people that she had the opportunity to meet. I have not had a chance to discuss with her news of Toby Keith's death, but I'll tell her about that later today. We are at the nearly at the bottom of the hour, so that is going to do it for the news portion of the Awake Nation News. We do it Monday through Friday in the first half hour of the program. For those of you watching this on YouTube, please head on over to our Rumble channel, the David Zublick channel, for a full edition of the Awake Nation. And now it's time to tell you who is coming on the program today. Penny?
And away we go with a shot of espresso.
Good day and welcome to the Awake Nation guest interviews with guests who defy the mainstream narrative. Grab a cup of coffee while our guests brew the news for you. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso.
The Mockingbird Media controls the narrative. We help you determine what is real and what is not.
Global conspiracy with key players, the highest levels of power, reaches into the lives of every man, woman, and child on this planet.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow government, I will fear no Satans. Tuesday, February 6, 2024, our guests are
Christi Tasker. Christi Tasker is an award-winning technologist, international business consultant, designer, manufacturer, artisan. She designs and sells fashion, jewelry, home decor, and fabrics. Christi is also an investigative journalist based in Miami who travels globally to discover truth. She's an investigative journalist for the Awake Nation. You can find her at ChristiTasker.com, PSSRocks.com, PatriotsPerspective.com, and ChristiTaskerForMiami.com.
Christi is currently running for mayor of Miami. And don't forget to visit Banana Republic News at BananaRepublicNews.com for the latest news on Miami and global events. Banana Republic News, we don't monkey around with the truth. Our next guest is Gary Wayne, author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, How Secret Societies and the Descendants of Giants Plan to Enslave Mankind. It details the role of modern-day Nephilim in Satan's plan to install the Antichrist at the end of days. Our next guest is Brent Thomas. Brent is the host of Paranormal Portal on TFR Live. You can find Brent on YouTube at Paranormal Portal and on iHeartRadio. His podcast is available all over. And closing out the final hour of the Awake Nation is Gunnar Alan Lindbloom. He is the author of To Be a King. His mother was a Toko of the Detroit Toko crime family. In Gunnar's late teens and early 20s, he was known as an associate or street enforcer for the family. He completed a 13-year stint behind bars and is now a writer and a speaker. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dark Outpost at darkoutpost.tv. There you will find exclusive content, interviews, documentaries, and intel not found anywhere else. Watch us live on Rumble at the David Zublick channel or at theawakenation.com. Falling down the rabbit hole can hurt. Ow, 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 ow. That's gonna hurt. We will provide the researchers and whistleblowers. Your mission is to discern the truth from the MSN lies. And now for the interview portion of the Awake Nation. And awake we go with a shot of espresso. It's showtime. Welcome to Banana Republic News. We don't monkey around with the truth. Meet your host and creator of Banana Republic News, Christi Tasker, international investigative journalist situated in Miami. Christi covers hot topics the MSN won't touch. She covers crime, government corruption, conspiracies, and the entire political spectrum from Trump to DeSantis with the unbiased eyes of a seasoned world traveler and investigative journalist. She also covers art, fashion, food, music. She utilizes undercover methodologies and no topic goes uncovered. For Christi Tasker is a formidable, deep researcher. Many do duck and cover when they see her coming. Banana Republic News with Christi Tasker begins now.
Yeah, man. Welcome back
Yeah,
to the
man.
nation. How you doing, Christy? Of course, you are muted.
You're muted. We cannot hear you.
Afterwards. I'm always muted afterwards. I always forget to unmute myself. How are you guys today?
Really good.
Well,
How are you?
Good. When did you decide to run for mayor? I mean, you didn't say that the last time you and all of a sudden I see this Christi Tasker
Right
for
after our
mayor.
show, she's like, dang it, I'm done with this. I went to a city hall meeting. I'm running for mayor.
You know what, David? When whatever it takes to keep our city employed and our trash picked up and our police that we do have in check, because when morale is low, you do whatever you have to do to make sure those people have hope and strength and know that there's somebody that's not quitting on them, because they've had so many people quit, duck, and run. And they're sick and tired of it. And I'm sick and tired of it. So, when a very special individual came to me and said, Miss Tasker, the entire department is like really, really down. You should have won, District 2. We're very concerned about the entire city. I said, and he said, a lot of people are wanting to quit. And I said, tell them not to quit. And he goes, what can I take back to them to tell them not to quit? I said, you think if we tell them I'm running for mayor, it'll work? And he said, I think that'll do it.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, take it to them. Tell them we're going to do it.
I think that's great. I really do. I mean, you're so
well. What's really interesting? What's really interesting in this process? Okay, so some people might look and go, "Well, Christy, you didn't win District 2." Well, District 2 is made up of all liberals. Okay, so a Democrat gay guy won. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Before that, they voted in a person that couldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. So obviously, that is not really my direct crowd. Okay.
Yeah.
They are not going to vote on me. So they always vote on the less of two evils, is what they've all told me. But they're happy to support me for being mayor if I want to run against Suarez, like awkwardly.
I think it's going to be great. I think you've got an excellent shot at winning, and this could only be to the benefit of that city. Honest to God.
Well, a lot of my supporters, the majority of my supporters, were either in other districts, to be honest with you. So my funds actually came from other districts, because people, even though every vote in District 2 supports or goes against the city, they wanted to make sure that we actually had representation on the city commission as a whole. But the reality is we have a mayor that for the past 6 months, I feel like I've spent my entire time going against, the entire commission body and the entire city as a whole. And the majority of what the mayor does is actually keeps the employees happy. It's an honorary speech giving position, and a person who has the ability to connect with the citizens, which he's not doing right now. So, I connect with citizens on a daily basis. I love citizens. I want to please citizens. I'm a people pleaser. And the reality is we all want the same thing. We all want our garbage picked up. We want our city to be safe and secure. And we don't want to be tripping over homelessness. So I was going to start going into a speech that he made that was called the State of the City speech. And I say it should be called the State of Corruption speech.
Yeah.
But the reality is we don't really have enough time to go into it today. And I've gotten so many messages from the show that Penny and I did with Mike Gill, and then you guys were going over Mike Gill, that I thought it was very important for me to bring up what I have been in communication with Mike Gill. First of all, I want to say I'm very happy yesterday that our Governor Ron DeSantis is back in Florida as governor. And I got a chance to speak with him yesterday after the press briefing to inform him, that the state of our state is not what Francis Suarez gave the week prior on homelessness. Ron DeSantis was here yesterday regarding homelessness. So we have to look at the alignments of who's possibly white hats, who's black hats. And I will tell you, yesterday at the press briefing, almost every mayor was there except for representation from our county and our city, which are the two most corrupt mayors that we've ever dealt with in the history of all of Miami. And I know some people love Daniela Cava-Levine, but I will assure all of you, Daniela Cava-Levine is supported by Alex Diaz de la Portilla via Christian Olvert, her campaign manager, who is now managing for over 14 candidates. Okay, 14 candidates. And Alex Diaz de la Portilla is the guy who is meeting with the graphics designers and with the marketing teams to basically pit one side against the other. Yes, Alex Diaz de la Portilla was the state committee man for the Republican Party. We have him ousted. He is gone now. So he is not in our party, as is Christian Ziegler, gone on a dollar store salary. Okay. I am not playing around. I'm not playing around with any of these people. I don't play around with corruption. I don't play around with evil, and I don't play around with criminals. And I'm not one. So there's very few people here that are running for office or have run for office that are either not friends, or that are friends with criminals, or running for office as known criminals. When I tell people this, like, they'll say, "Oh, is that person good?" No. They have a criminal history. Okay. And it's not a funny criminal history. It's usually stealing, money laundering, fraud, something of that nature. You think they won't do it again? We got everything coming. So yesterday, I got a chance, and David, I'll share my screen just so the audience knows what's here, that finally Governor Ron DeSantis is no longer running from Christi Tasker. So nice. I took this as a sign yesterday. I was like, "Governor," and he came right over and he's like, "You want a photo?" so we got.
He looks a lot happier now too that he's not running. It's like he was pushed to do it too soon.
Probably pushed to do it by those bushes. So my uncle used to tell me, "Go shake a bush," and now I'm like, well, maybe he was shaking the bushes. To see like.
Do we know how long have you lived in Miami?
I've lived in Miami since 2015.
Okay, so you weren't there when Jeb Bush was governor.
No, I was here. The governor that was here was Rick Scott, and Rick Scott in 2017 was the one who did the big Zika scare. Okay,
right.
And his wife actually had the pest control company that supplied the chemicals for all the spray overs. And so if everybody can imagine, I believe Zika scare, I think there's a lot that happens here in Miami that people don't realize. Number one, that this is part of an experimental city as a whole. So what do I mean by that? Will we comply when they say stop? So I tell everybody, do not comply. Go with your constitutional rights. Do not let anybody fearmonger you into anything. Francis Suarez was easily used as a chief fearmonger for the Latin population during COVID. All you got to do is go back and look at CNN. He was on CNN nonstop, CNN Espanol, It's in his locked up in his room. But guess what? His sergeants of arms state otherwise. His sergeants of arms know the truth. His sergeants of arms are good people. They don't want to be in the positions that they're in. Okay, Francis, you think you're protected, but guess what? They're sick and tired of your bull crap. Okay, everybody's sick and tired of it. Francis Suarez was told by the Brazilian government that he had COVID. He laughed about it. He said, "Oh, you're telling me that I've got COVID, I need to shut down my city? Well, you're going to have to be." They told him that they were 98% sure, and he said, "No, I need you to be 100% sure." And they said, "Oh, we're 100% sure," and he said, "Okay, I'm going to shut down the city." Okay, but right along beside him was also another Republican, Carlos Jimenez, who is still directly beside President Trump. President Trump knows Carlos Jimenez has been booed off of the stage at all of his rallies. The last 3 rallies that have been held in Miami, there's one person that's been booed off the stage. It is Carlos Jimenez. Stop, President Trump. Stop, Roger Stone. By the way, since last week, I've met with Roger Stone, Governor DeSantis, and Francis Suarez has run for me. Okay. So Penny and I think, David, after this show, I text Penny and said, "Can you go on with me and help me with a specific episode?" Because I want to show everybody all the footage, exactly what he did. He ran for me and the Miami Herald. Okay. And I was standing there last week when the Miami Herald was given a position to go in over ABC, and Francis Suarez's PR person said, no. He only wants to go on with Glenna on ABC. Well, Glenna called him out. Okay. So it's like a big stink everywhere. So we're going to go over all of that in the next hour. But here, I want to make sure that we cover my theories on the Mike Gill situation. Okay. Because this is extremely, extremely important. Okay. And Mike Gill knows. I made sure that I tweeted at him, and then also made sure privately via Twitter that he saw this. Okay. Because what I look at as a technology professional, for those of you who don't know, I won a technology award in like 2013, 2014. I didn't even realize that it was how important this award was. So much so that I was like on the other side of the world. My mom picked it up for me. Okay. So I won the Cox Communication Technology Award called the Tech Exec for Community Exemplary, which means that, I did great things while I was in Las Vegas to help the city of Las Vegas actually increase tourism, to keep people from being unemployed for a period of about 2 weeks. And it was like an emergency crisis, and I didn't even realize what an emergency it was at the time. I just utilized my skills because I have actual skills, and I have actual customers, and I have actual businesses that are not money laundering or trafficking children. So what I've noticed is a lot of times whenever there is a name, obviously Mike Gill, the whistleblower's name, was trending big time online. Okay. Huge. You couldn't stop it. All right. So what happens is mainstream media, whenever you have larger sites that, of course, they're not going to report on the Mike Gill, the whistleblower. No way. Okay. So they need to stop his name from appearing in the top of Google searches. So what do? Mike Gill, they shoot another Mike Gill. Okay. So that is my theory, that they've shot another Mike Gill to cover up Mike Gill for governor. Because let me just show you. This is what it looked like right when this whole thing happened. Okay. So Mike Gill, the whistleblower, was trending at the top on his YouTube, on Maryland State Archives, because, he has so much evidence. So for a lot of people have emailed me and said, Penny, that our last show, they're like, they don't understand what it is. Okay. So let me explain to you. I'm going to post the documentary, the full documentary, Pandora Papers and Panama Papers. So those papers have allowed it's allowed money laundering, fraud, all kinds of things to come in and buy up your homes. Okay. Buy up your homes, buy up businesses, shut them down, own the governments, basically. Okay. But the most important thing is I want everybody to stop and think, have the prices of homes gone up in your area. Yes. Why? Well, obviously, one is inflation. Number two is because we have Blackstone, BlackRock, and all these small, what's called shell companies buying up homes as investment properties. Okay.
Right.
What does that mean? That means that we know billionaires, millionaires, people, and listen, there's people that I speak with on a daily basis that manage some of these funds. They know the money was put into real estate, but was the money legally earned? No, because this is money laundering. This is a way for them to utilize the money that they have. Because keep in mind, if you've watched Cocaine Cowboys, Billy William Cohen told us in Cocaine Cowboys how they get the money, and they get so much that they cannot do anything with it. They cannot spend it. It's so much money they cannot actually spend it. Because if they spend it, we are going to notice. In other words, they can't go and buy a Rolls Royce because you're going to know their neighbor. Oh my gosh, so-and-so, he's just an attorney, and all of a sudden he's buying a Rolls Royce. Oh, he's now buying a $6 million home from his $2 million home. So how did he get all this money? He needs to make sure that they know. So they've utilized Pandora Papers and Panama Papers in order to start corporations that have come in to buy homes so that your children can no longer afford it. Okay, so let's go through this. So notice, this is what it looked like before this Mike Gill was shot. Okay, so Mike Gill was shot. The top stories then became carjacking, Mike Gill, and Mike Gill, sports commentator. Okay, so that's what the news cycle, it changed. Okay, it changed. They've also have a Mike Gill, chairman of Evergreen Advisors. Notice they've named people all kinds of different names. Penny, we know this from doing Megan's research. They name people. Megan has told us over and over again. They name people Johns. They use the first, second, third, juniors, everything, so that the name is
thrown at me.
Well, let me just tell you, one of Megan's children's name is John Walsh. And guess what? When I was looking at all of her documents, it would become very confusing because I'm going, okay, is this the child? Is this her father?
Right. Yes.
Like, is this? Yes. That's what they want. They want the court to even be confused. They want everybody to be confused. That's what they do. They rename people, various things. Okay. So I believe that is what they have done in order to stop the real Mike Gill. Hold on, David, I apologize. I was actually going to go to Mike Gill's because I wanted everybody to know who Mike Gill is, what he is doing. Because listen, there are things that Mike Gill is saying that I disagree with him on. Okay, there are things that he's saying that I disagree with him on. I disagree with the fact that he still thinks General Flynn is bad, because I think even no matter what, if General Flynn was a double agent, triple agent, whatever, I think he has turned to the right side. Okay, General Flynn doesn't control anybody, doesn't control me. I've only met with him. He states he stated to me privately that he has not received documentation from Mike Gill. He said to me face to face, again, I wanted to ask him face to face, not over a text, not over an email, because I wanted to know what was his reaction. Obviously, he's run psyops all over the world, so he's going to be very good at psyops than anybody. Okay, I'm not stupid when it comes to that. But he said, I have not received his evidence. I would like to receive his evidence. I have heard of him. And I said, General Flynn, it's my understanding that Mike Gill has also been in touch with Juan O'Savin. He said, I don't like that guy. I said, what guy? He said, Juan O'Savin.
Yeah.
Okay. It appears to me that he's on the same side as Juan O'Savin. Okay. Because why do I say that? Because we have Nino Rodriguez and all the Juan O'Savin people. Well, some of them have been kicked off of the Reawaken tour schedule. Okay.
Really?
I've never been invited to
know
it. Yes. So Scott McKay was kicked off of the Reawaken tour schedule. Charlie Ward was kicked off of the Reawaken tour schedule. So we do see some of the Wano-Savan people have been kicked off in the past. Okay.
Huh.
I have personally asked Clay Clark face to face why they've been kicked off. And his answer was, we can't always give only the good people a platform. I mean, that was not verbatim. When I told you about General Flynn, those words were verbatim. His words. Okay. Clay, that was a summary of what basically he was saying. Okay. And Clay Clark also told me, I said, Clay, how do you find out if people are good or bad? He said, go to Simon & Schuster, search Simon & Schuster. Whoever is authored for Simon & Schuster has taken a death contract on their family, on their life. That's what he said.
Wow.
Okay. So, and I was asking him about pastors
really
because my pastor just. No, I mean, this is, I've said this before. I mean, these are facts. This is what he said. So anyway, I just wanted people to know, if you want to know more about Mike Gill, this is his Twitter. Okay. This is his Twitter where he has 21,600 followers right now. It's going to say that he joined on April the 22nd, but just make sure you're communicating with the right Mike Gill. Okay.
Not only that, but this operation would then make people not go to his Twitter because they would presume he's dead.
Correct. And that's the reason, Penny, I thought it was much more important for our audience, because I know that they are very interested in things going on nationally and stuff like this. And Mike Gill, there's one thing that he does say. Okay. I know because Wano-Savan, I've spoken to Wano-Savan privately on the phone with two people, Brett Bowl and Sheila Holm. Sheila Holm can confirm that there are at least two Wano-Savans. Okay. I will say that there's one way to tell the two Wano-Savans from each other. One has a lisp and the other does not. Okay. I do believe that they are using a voice automation tool to sound the same. Okay. We know that AI can easily do that. I can use AI as a tool to sound like almost anybody. Okay. So I would just say, and one of the things that Mike is constantly saying is Wano-Savan is I will show you my face. He says, this is what Mike Gill says. I will show you my face. Wano-Savan will not. No. I will tell you about evidence. Wano-Savan will not.
It was shown on either, I think it might have been Jaco's show. Inadvertently, his
mostly what you see are boots.
Right.
Boots on the table.
This particular episode that was sent to me, show his face was accidentally shown. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it was on Jaco's show.
Well, here's the thing. He walked Roseanne Barr out. And I'll go off of here now because I'll close out here.
Okay.
He walked Roseanne Barr out here in Miami at the Trump rally. Wano-Savan did. I know. I was sitting right in front of him. I was sitting directly in Junior's seat. Al Junior. Okay. President's son sitting in Kimberly and his seat. Wano-Savan's seat was one back. Jennifer Mack's seat was directly next to it, but they never came to sit in the seats. Roger Stone was sitting in his seat. Laura Loomer was sitting in her seat. Jimmy Levy was sitting in their seats. Okay. And what we know is that Wano-Savan did walk Roseanne Barr out. Roseanne Barr spoke at the Miami Trump rally. So I believe, this is just my take at this very moment, that General Flynn maybe he doesn't really like Wano-Savan totally. Maybe they are on kind of different sides and Trump is in the middle. Who really knows? We don't really know. Yeah. So we don't really know. I will post, what I'll do is on Patriots Perspective, I'll post a video because these are theories. If everybody's wondering, I post everything that are perspectives on Patriots Perspective. And then I try to give you the proofs of why I think that. Okay. So that's not saying that it's 100% like there's facts and there's my thoughts based on the facts today that those could change tomorrow. And I'll let you know if they do. But when people are trying to pit against each other, I basically told Mike Gill that. And he says maybe they're both, he thinks they're both bad. Maybe they are. Maybe he's right. Because Mike has for 10 years recorded his evidence. Now, I have asked Mike for his papers, for the documents. For some reason, we have not gotten the documents. And I've had Ann Vanderstill and General Flynn's team basically say, please get the documents, share them. Because evidently nobody else could get the documents either. So if my thing to Mike is like, listen, let's share the documents publicly. General Flynn evidently, if now wasn't if the documents were given to another General Flynn, as General Flynn has insinuated, he did not say that. He insinuated that maybe there was a double out there. Maybe Mike Gill thought he gave documents to General Flynn and did not. However, there is one thing that we have to note that Mike Gill says is that General Flynn called him from the Oval Office.
Yes, and he does have texts.
But the text can be changed, Penny. So, I mean, I've said that to Mike. I'm like, the names on text messages can be changed. So, text emails, a different story. With an IP address, listen, that's where, as a technologist, I'm looking at
a lot of trouble to do that. But yes, I agree.
Unfortunately, we are.
I mean, I don't.
Not here, but what time is your show going to air today, Christy? With
we're going to air at 12 o'clock on Patriots Perspective.
Okay, so that's noon Eastern time.
Actually, I'm sorry, David. On Banana Republic News, I apologize because we're going to be talking just about Miami there.
So that will be actually 1 your time, 12 my time.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Sorry, Penny. Is that what time we need? 1 o'clock my time.
I just want to gather some assessments after we get off this show.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Very good. In the meantime,
thank you guys so much.
Keep us posted because Miami is going to get much better going in the very near future.
Well, follow bananarepublicnews.com. It's free. Go to bananarepublicnews.com and just subscribe.
All right. Do it, folks. Do it today. Christy, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help, Penny.
Christi Tasker here on the Awake Nation, and you can hear her and see her later today, along with the aforementioned Penny L.A. Shepard, my partner in crime. Before we take a quick break and then bring in our next guest, I want to remind you, Get More Tank is going to save you money on every tank of gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Look, if you're driving anywhere, the cost of fuel has really gone through the roof. This is a made in America product, folks. And the formula is already being used by trucking companies and heavy industry. And now the same Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works on any gas or diesel engine. It cleans your engine. It lowers emissions. And you're going to feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, blowers, you name it. It does not void your warranty, and it's fantastic. If you are an owner-operator running your own rig around town, use Get More Tank. If you're a plumber, a painter, a lawn service company that's gearing up for the spring, you need Get More Tank. A 5-pack is on sale at getmoretank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code AwakeNation. You'll get an additional 10% off of that. Again, getmoretank.com. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Gary Wayne, author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. And this time the last few times we've had him on the program, I come up with the topic, and then I find out later on that he had something he wanted to talk about. So today we're going to let him take the mic and tell us what he wants to talk about. So if he's not prepared, he's panicking right now in the green room. No, just kidding. We'll be right back after this. Yeah, I'm always the last to know. I just found out Penny's running for mayor of Bastrop, Texas. No, not true.
No, actually, that's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Okay. Or maybe Susie Q. Who knows?
Right.
Anyway, it is time now to bring in our next guest, Gary Wayne, author of a great book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy. Also, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy 2, which is going to be coming out shortly. And he's working on a third one. Welcome, Gary. Glad to have you back. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me back, and so happy to be here with you. And I was listening intently to the discussion previous to me just coming on here, and absolutely eye-popping for sure, and be interesting to see how that whole thing sort of develops. So yeah, happy to be back.
Well, glad to have you. Now, the last couple of times when we had you on the program, I would start a conversation, and then halfway through, Penny would text me and say, he wanted to talk about this.
No worries. It's always about what's important for what the host thinks that their audience wants to talk about. That's what we're here for.
Yeah,
but I always like to have a backup topic just in case. There's
right.
We don't want dead air on live television. So
no,
Right.
and so today I thought, I know they've got a number of different things that are on your mind. So why don't you tell us what you'd like to talk about today, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of craziness that's going on in the world today, and craziness that would have been unbelievable 20 years ago, 5 years ago even, and it just happens even faster. So one of the sort of crazy conventions that I kind of like to call it, probably in the scenario of the crazy clown trickster spirit. I don't know if I've ever talked about that on the show or not, but the Davos meeting is that crazy clown show meeting. And they did a whole bunch of things last year and then some things this year that I thought, they don't get a lot of highlights. They don't get a lot of highlighting in terms of the context that they're talking about. So I like to take a few notes, and I keep a Davos file from year to year, because even though they are projecting things that they want to see happen, they're always working on that, and they're always restarting and going like that. So it was interesting to hear that in the 2024 theme is that two major themes there. Actually, there's and a whole bunch of other ones underneath, and all sort of counterproductive to the quote unquote rebuilding trust. And I think they're concerned with some of the things going on around the world, that they're either going to have to act quickly or they're going to have to do things differently to try and get the things done that they want to done. So underneath the rebelling trust was the future is AI, which is also very interesting because AI has been all over the news in the last year.
God, has it ever?
And trying to figure out, what their connection is, what they're trying to do with it. And so what became clear in their discussions is that AI is not where they need it to be yet. So when they're talking about digital passports and digital currency and the Alibaba social credit system on blockchain and tying everything in together last year and the year before, they're focusing harder on AI this over the next year or so. And
let's give a little background of what this is. The World Economic Forum, and it takes Davos, Switzerland, correct?
Yes.
And they meet once a year, and they kind of like plan out basically some sort of world economic policy, or what they believe is best for the global. Now, is unlike things like Bilderberg, which seem to be more secluded and secretive, you said you followed it. Do they live stream these meetings? Can you actually sit and watch the World Economic Forum Davos meetings taking place?
Only if you're invited to do so.
Okay.
Just like you have to be invited to go to those meetings. So you really have to work to get the clips that they put out for kind of the highlights, but always there's some extra ones that get out from the live streaming and things like that. So Yeah, and maybe we should just sort of back up a little bit. So, where does this whole thing sort of fit? I mean, you understand that the Bilderbergers are kind of a similar kind of organization that meets once a year, and everybody gets their marching orders. So it's the very high up royal bloodlines that are meeting with the new money, like the Gates people, Elon Musk, all of those other kinds of people who are sort of newer into the power system with the new money, and they get their marching orders every year. This is part of that same hierarchical structure that all reports just to one central trunk group. So just as the Bilderbergers have an upper and a lower, a pure blood and the newer members order, and the Rosicrucians have 3 different levels in their orders. It's kind of complex like that, but it funnels back through the Bilderbergers to the Committee of 300.
Right.
Because it's mostly economic. And so Davos reports back to the Committee of 300 families as well in the thelemic tree.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So yes, that's where the International Bank connects into. That's where the World Economic Forum, anything to do with the Monetary Fund, anything to do with trade and economic systems are funneled through the Committee of 300 as part of those branch organizations. So you have to be invited to go to these meetings, and they only want certain people there that they're trying to and that list will change a little bit by the looks of the people that we see going there, depending on what their emphasis is. So AI was one of the central themes, and the green energy and carbon aspects to the green energy were sort of another aspect of it. So as I move into some of these details, that'll sort of be a little bit, I think, eye-opening for people, is that they look at the green aspect, and I'm going to come back to, because it connects in. The green aspect is a long-term strategy for them, and that it is moving to a level of strategy where they're now calling it a cultural war. So it has to have more government push to it. It has to have more technology attached to it. And they need the AI for the blockchaining to do things on that war that they're trying to change it into. So now it's not just propaganda. When they're doing a culture war, that's language that was used in China for the cultural war that Mao Zedong did. That's the level when they're talking that they would take it to. And of course, we know that was a genocide of well over 60 million people.
Yeah.
And so that was one interesting thing that came out of it. They also looked at another aspect that they're watching closely. And again, all ties back into the AI that I'm going to come back to, is that they say democratic elections are some of the biggest concerns they have in the world today. So they're anti-democracy, because if they can't control the outcome, they lose some grip on control. And they're looking at that as being a cause of fake news. And this is the fake news going to be the cause to democracy. So that means an increased push against anybody who's not talking about the party doctrine. As in Orwell, and I think I did the quote for Orwell on the last show, and that the fake news is one of the top worries, and that false facts, interesting term, and false truth are the 2 biggest concerns. So they're using oxymorons because, again, they're not saying it's not a fact; it's a false fact in terms of the lens that they're looking through. And false truth would be the same thing. And they would reclassify that in as misinformation that is passed around as disinformation. So if it's not what they believe to be truth or want to be truth, they're going to attack that. We had I live in Vancouver, and there's a left-wing party minister that had to resign today, and there's been a controversy over the last week. This gives you an example of what they're doing. And this is a left-wing member, which never happens, right? They can do anything that they want.
Pretty much.
She had said that before Israel moved to the land of Israel in 1947-48 for the Declaration of Independence and War, that it was basically a crappy land, or a wasteland, as the Bible would call it, and a desert as we understood it. They said that was racism, and that even though she apologized 3 times to the Palestinian community, she was forced to resign. And we know that that was a fact, that Israel is one who made it from a desert to what it is today, but you can't say that. So it's not their truth. And I'll just reread that Orwell quote so people know what we're talking about, because again, they tell us what they're going to do beforehand. So in 1984, the book that was written, it says, whatever the party holds to be truth is truth. Followed by, it is impossible to see reality except by looking through the eyes of the party. This is the uniparty for globalists, right? This is the whole movement that truth is only what they say it is. They can hold a billion different truths of their own truth, but if you oppose them, you cannot hold to your own fake truth if you're to model them, or actually what truth is. So that is some of the things that we should be looking for, but it's the AI thing in combination with this freaky little nature priest that was there that I wanted to talk about, that I'll cover off maybe a little bit later on in the show. It's absolutely spooky what she did.
Oh, wow.
So with AI, they're behind. They need to speed it up. And you see people like Elon Musk, who have created a company to create his form of AI. We have to go back to that term white hat and dark hat. So he looks at Google as being the dark hat and himself as the white hat. And I like a lot of things Elon does, but we have to understand in the polytheist belief system, the philosophy, the love of Sophia, as they like to call it, which is the theology behind their knowledge cult, and everything underneath goes into it, is that the white hats have humankind's better interest at heart. The black hats don't care about humans, period. They have the same goal, just a little bit different strategy. And it's like that cattle herding effect from the left and the right to get you to go into the middle where they want you to go. So he's creating a good AI company, but there's no good AI. We all know how this ends. And so he's working on that. And we had a conversation in Davos. There was this group discussion, and it got to the topic of brain implants. And in 10 years, they said they'll have the chip in the brain, and it will interconnect with the mind, with other people's minds.
It's the chips in the brain.
Chips in the brain. And
yes, he already put it in the first human.
Yes, I was going to get to that. Absolutely. And that's that hive mind capability that we've talked about on some of the other shows. And then, as you mentioned, Penny, Elon announced the first interlink into the brain, a human brain, this week. So that's the development of things that they're trying to advance, and that they need the AI to come along faster, which is why Elon also created an AI company. And you see AI is moving very, very quickly. And it's that nexus of technologies that they're trying to bring in. So they want AI combined with quantum mechanics and computing. That's interdimensional. You have the cryptocurrency that they're developing. They've had to move that back, because even though the Federal Reserve banks all around the world and even in Canada, they announced cryptocurrency was going to come out as a government currency this year, all of that's had to been moved back because they still have some issues with the technology. And so they're doubling down in a significant way, and they've got the social credit system platform ready to go. And they announced that last year, and that's the Alibaba system that's used in China that can track your carbon footprint, that can track through the AI coming through facial recognition that we talked about on a few shows for digital passports. They can do a social credit and medical history wherever you travel, anything they want to load in through cryptocurrency, that is all coming into this system, and they need to speed up that implant system. And what's interesting as well is in terms of the technology of where they see this going with this sort of implant system is that whole sort of understanding of cloning. And that's it's a dual technology, not only to create the oiketerion, the soul and the body of the physical world, but you have to be able to transfer the spirit or the consciousness, as they like to call it in science. And in this cloning and technology, is they're developing through primitively, but they'll be more advanced down the road in like the 3D printing concept, that there needs to be a stack that you can transfer the consciousness into this oiketerion. And this transfer of consciousness goes through a portal. And the soul and the body is called like a sleeve, as Altered Carbon called it in their show. And this is technology that's all being advanced that has to be connected into this this interlink system, this chip system that connects interdimensionally into multiple universes, where you can get all knowledge and everything that you need to change DNA, to give you immortality, to cure diseases. But then you become in contact with the divine essence, or the Atman that we've talked about as well, through that sort of interlink. And that aspect will provide the knowledge and will provide the health care through the system. Just as Davos said, the chip system in 2017 would come through the healthcare system as the delivery system, because people will demand it so that they can be cured from diseases and live longer. So that's why the pestilence aspect and the digital passports and the vaccine passports and all of that sort of law and technology, and coming down in May, if they can pull it off, they've got complete changes with additional powers to the World Health Organization that will be able to, if they get it through, we'll see, they haven't been able to do in the last 2 or 3 years, but that will give them absolute control after a couple of weeks, if they're not happy, in every country in the world, to go in and take over, do martial law, whatever they need to do, and all the countries would have to sign off on that. I know that's got a lot of pushback, but expect that is going to be part of the whole, I guess, test runs of what they're trying to do. So expect another set of catastrophes, along with the wars, that their perpetual war thing and the chaos that they're creating, to be to launch what they've done for changes and see how that works. And they are getting desperate and more panicked because they're way behind the schedule that they would like to have. So that's just some of the sort of,
as far behind schedule as they may be, Gary, this is moving at an extremely fast clip.
It is.
From melting the monkey's brains a couple of years ago to then, after he melted the brains, and the FDA said, hey, we're going to approve your implants. And there's another company that's making the implants, and they like contravened against his implants and said, well, his implants are going to dissolve your brain, but ours won't.
Yeah. And in conjunction with all of that is they were talking about the carbon footprint, that AI, that it's lacking in the blockchain technology that they're trying to unite. They need that advance so that they can have the ultimate carbon footprint tracker. And that's to be linked in to the social credits in terms of what they talked about over there, that it'll be dictate what you can buy, how much you can buy, where you can go, what you can see, what sort of banking, money, lending, whatever it is, will be dictated through that convergence of the technology. So there is no good AI. I mean, once it's out of the box, I mean, they can call it good AI, they can call it bad AI. You might as well be calling it white magic or black magic. It's
right,
still
or
magic.
Good Satan and bad Satan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, they had quite a meeting there this year. And a couple other things that was interesting is former presidential candidate Kerry and the climate czar, was getting upset because his fake truth isn't being accepted properly in terms of flying over to Davos in a private jet that he says isn't his own. And what's interesting is, that's how they do things. That's why we
Yes.
have to look at everything they say and they do. Yes, it's not technically his jet, it's his wife's jet.
Oh,
They
he
just
did not pull that one.
Yeah, it's you have to understand, and there's an old saying is, how do you tell when a salesman's lying? His lips are moving. With the left and the government, that's really what it comes down to these days. And when they're moving up that cultural war, with the green aspects, the cultural war on misinformation, on democracy is dangerous, that you can't have a populist candidate because they can't control that populist candidate. So that's anti-democracy when it's actually the definition of democracy.
Right? They twist everything. It reminds me of my first fiance, Darrell, and my 2 ex-husbands, who are both now dead. Oh, well.
Well, let's hope their Davos organization goes defunct as well, because. But the thing is,
along with the World Health Organization and the Bilderbergers, let's hope they all do.
Yeah, but the thing is it's not what they say that's important; it's what they do.
Yes.
And this all goes back and gets implemented, and we see it moving to a different level, year after year after year. And so we're moving in a globalist pattern, and they need chaos to bring about a globalist government. And they need chaos and catastrophes to bring about the beast system. They call this system that we're in today, and people may or may not be familiar with this, they call it, within the polytheist organizations and belief system, they call it the Babylon system.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And the Babylon system is what makes the way for Antichrist and his beast system. So there's a beast religion, there's a beast geopolitical nature, there's a beast city, and there's a beast system. That's Babylon. And then the Leviathan system is the one that they say they're preparing for. If that sounds familiar, that's a term of the Bible. Right. It would also have an equivalent to like Lotan, Tiamat, and all sorts of these godlike serpent-type beings in the past that all have the female that's killed. And biblically, they pull the description out of Revelation 13 to define their Leviathan system, because a Leviathan is a multi-headed system. So coming out of the sea of this beast system of the 7 kings that produces the 8th empire of the Antichrist is a dragon coming out of the sea. It's a hydra. It is the Leviathan system, because they like to do things and pull it out of the Bible for their own sort of legitimacy. And that's what they're preparing through the Babylon system, to ultimately bring about the implant with the Antichrist and the Leviathan system at the midpoint of the last 7 years. So that's where they're trying to bring this about. And if you have any more questions on some of the things that they're talking about on that, I'll move on to this shaman that was there.
I will let you do that. The only question I have is you talk about them creating chaos.
Yes.
So I would assume that perhaps this uncontrolled influx of illegal immigrants into the United States is part of the creation of that chaos, because
it is.
Because then it causes states like Texas here in the United States to put up a border fence, face pushback from the federal government, possibly triggering some sort of a standoff, a civil war, and everything. So this is not by chance. All of a sudden, these people are coming into this country just because they want a better life.
No,
they're being led into this.
Yeah, it's a multi-layered set of tactics that goes into the larger strategy and vision. So one of the stumbling blocks to the New World Order, that I like to call the Nephilim World Order, is the U.S. The U.S. has been very, very successful from the European bloodline perspective of being their attack dog, but it's too powerful. And so there's been an active strategy for the last 20 years or so to bring down the power of the U.S. And the only way you can really do that is two things: is you have to eat away at its ability to be the economic juggernaut of the world, and you have to erode the ability to have a populist pushback. And so the open borders are part of that strategy. One, I mean, we see all the debt spending and all the other things that go on that have been ruining the U.S. economy to bring them lower. But you also have to have complete control of the populace. So two things you do to do that is you overload the system with costs. I mean, you cannot afford to give free healthcare, free education, free everything for an unlimited amount. You'll bankrupt yourself. And that is essentially part of the strategy. And the other one is to make sure the populist movement can't get control and push back. So populist movements like Trump are saying, we don't like the European model of the world order. So that's why he's such a danger to them, because he'll push back their agenda significantly. Because to have 10 kings in that proposed system, you can't have one that's so dominant that you wouldn't have 10 equal partners. Now, behind the scenes, the Europeans want to have more power than everybody else because they want to present their bloodline, one of their bloodlines, as the dynasty to rule the world with their dragon messiah. But other countries around the world, like Russia, is saying, we're not against the New World Order. We just don't like your model, Mr. Europeans. And by the way, we're very, very happy you want to bankrupt the U.S. so that you can have this state that you can, present this specious sort of model of equals and that you're going to dominate it. We're not going to accept that. China, with the Xi bloodline, is also not going to accept that. That's the Xi or the Shah dynasty bloodline that's in power, and he's president for life, and he's going to build that empire, just as Putin, I think, believes he's part of the Putyanin bloodline out of Kiev, which is why it's such a holy city. The Putyanins were the original czars that started the Russian branch dynasty, again, of the Putyanin, and then through intermarriage in about 1600, the junior offshoot, which is like the Plantagenet, is a junior offshoot of the Anjou and the Western bloodlines. The Romanovs was the junior offshoot of the Putyanin. So and he believes he's part of that bloodline through illegitimate, as a descendant of the illegitimate grandfather out of the Putyanin family who receives part of the name. So anyways, you're getting a pushback of all of these other countries around the world and empires that are forming. So that's why we're going to have these wars and rumors of wars. But as we go, one of the ways that they move this forward is the perpetual war policy. It's as long as you've got wars going on and more destruction going on, you create more of a need for an order that's going to set that, or to sort of bring that under control. So that fits into it as well. So anyways, all of those things are happening, and this is the economic arm that is at play through Davos, and you're seeing that sort of dovetail into the border strategy as part of that economic strategy and the green strategy that the Biden government is absolutely interwedded into, along with the perpetual war strategy.
It's interesting. I'm reminded with all these wars and the idea of the preservation of land, the preservation of infrastructure, of an old episode of Star Trek called A Taste of Armageddon, in which there were two planets that were fighting each other in a war, but it was all conducted by computers. And what would happen is there would be a strike on a city. The city would not be harmed at all, but the people who lived in that city would put themselves into, who were hit, would voluntarily walk into disintegration chambers and be killed. And I'm wondering if these brain implants would be a part of the idea of, let's say that two countries go to war and they say, okay, we're not going to use physical war anymore, But if we, hit your city and your city is destroyed, not literally, but, whatever, we'll just use the connection to the brain implants to turn people off. They're, you're dead. They just collapse.
Right.
That sort of thing.
In their belief system, to take the mundane that they look at as cattle, that's us,
Yeah.
to be able to play a computer game and then just instantly have the ability to eliminate people for the casualties would seem to be a civilized sort of perspective. Just as in the Armageddon, humane in terms of their superior ideology and who they think they are. So what's also interesting is that Armageddon sort of connection and the Shiva connection as you get coming out of CERN and where a lot of this technology is going on that feeds into the looking for the Atma particle or the divine essence that we've talked about on some past shows. In the Shiva understanding, the Shiva god is the destroyer of worlds, but it's also the regenerator of worlds, and it destroys the world and is a requirement for the renewal process. And so Armageddon is not something that the globalists fear, because it's the analogy of the phoenix in their belief system rising out of the ashes for this new world, not for the mundane humans, as they call it, but for the spark of the divine, with all of these sleeves and spirit or conscious transfer in this new world. So they think that they literally got to destroy this world and then recreate it for the image of the spurious offspring that they'll be provided Oiketarians in the future. And the divine essence, as we've talked about in the past, it feeds off of human worship. So when you're creating portals to access it, whether it's through rituals, or it's through drug enhancement, or astral planing, or yoga, which is designed to get you into contact with the divine essence. Understand that it feeds off of those beings that are entering into that, and it feeds off the ones preferably which aren't the spark of the divine, but it consumes all living things, dead and alive, and then returns them to part of the omnipresence. So when we look at the physical aspect of that from historical, when they do all of these blood sacrifices and things, they feed off of that. This is the same sort of concept that this implant is going to put people in contact with. And the planets are reseeded again and again in their belief system, which is why they have to make you feel that there's multiple planets in the universe that have life versus these beings interdimensional travelers, so that they can go through that Shiva destruction over and over and over and over, so that they can feed off of the death of people. Armageddon is essentially a mass ritual for
it sounds like
for the gods. Yeah. So, and that, when we look at the technology of the AI that's going in it, this is the summoning of the demon that Elon Musk talks about, and that these algorithms that are invisible, that operate behind the system, that influence the agenda of the globalists and where they're going to go. They call them daemon algorithms.
Right.
Which sounds like demon, correct?
It is.
Well,
demon.
it's the Greek root word for demon in English.
Right.
So yeah. So I mean, they tell us in plain
It's
sight
like in
what
your
they're
face.
doing. Yeah. So now, with all of that in mind, and with the spiritual aspect that's also in play, and these portals and things like that, let's bring in Chief Putani Ioana, the nature priest from the forest that did this ceremony to people on the stage, and that they had a premise there that they wanted to do this ritual so that they could talk and with their ancestors, and to look back and to review things with their ancestors. Biblically, we sleep. The only spirits that are out there moving around are disembodied spirits of the spurious bloodline of the Nephilim, because they're not permitted into heaven and they're not permitted to sleep. So they have to wander. They're either going to make it to their heaven in Hades, they're going to wander the earth in dry places, or they're going to be in the pits, in the pit prison on the sides of the abyss if they're one of the terrible ones. And so she is the priest of the spirit of the wood, so a nature priest. This is in the same ideology as the Green Movement. This is in the same ideology of the Druids and Cernunnos. This is the same ideology of the Pan god. These are all nature gods. Pan, Bacchus, Cern, Cernunnos, multiple other ones are thought to be degraded seraphim watchers and devil goat gods, and they're the nature gods. They're the horn gods. It's all part of their imagery and understanding. If anybody's unfortunately had an involvement with the occult, and they're all interconnected. So this priest of the forest of the nature cult, she had her face that was dipped in red. It was covered. It's like it would have an image if you had this bowl and you put your face in that bowl to drink it, how the whole lower level of your face would look in that blood drinking ritual, which is again part of the. And what she did was she went up to each one of them and basically went right to their forehead and breathed on them to transfer the nature spirit into them to be able to talk with the ancestors and consult them. And this is a ritual aspect of blowing a wind or a spirit, or the imagery of opening up a portal to let the spirits in.
Did anybody catch this on video?
Yes, I watched it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So just have to Google Chief Putani Yuana of the Chief Putani of the Yuana tribe of Central America or South America, and that's spelled Putani, and you'll see the ritual, unless they've taken it down. But I saw it like a half a dozen times. I was just absolutely stunned. She walks up to every one of them, and they are literally participating in this ritual. It is absolutely stunning. And so the blowing of the breath, breath.
Oh, it's up there. It's
spirit or ruach. Unbelievable. And it just fits in if you understand that this wasn't just cute DEI and cultural recognition. They do things in rituals in ways that if you don't understand it, you might say, okay, that's kind of creepy, but it's just, they're just being good people. They're not being good people. They're telling you who they are. And it's that worldwide system of royals, and priests are always part of the royal class. The royal class populates the top two classes in the 4-class system all around the world, and that includes the priest class of the religions at the top. It includes the oligarchs, which the Davos community are. It includes the leaders of the armies, and it is the governments or the royal bloodlines of the kingships. So understand that this individual that was a priest just wasn't this nice little person who, is maybe a tribal chieftain. This is someone who would be an adept level.
This wasn't exactly Pocahontas.
Yeah, this would be a shaman of very high levels that would be recognized by the other polytheist groups that run the world and understand exactly the rituals and the things that she's saying.
Wow, that just and getting back to the AI thing, I thought about something that never occurred to me until you brought it up a few moments ago about Elon Musk. Now, we know that just a few months ago, Elon Musk was calling for a pause on the development of AI. And of course, the first impression is, oh, here's a guy that really is carrying that this might be going too fast, too far. How do we know that wasn't an attempt on his part to get everybody else to stall so that he could
Yeah,
we just need
we don't
more months.
catch up and build, get ahead of the game?
It wasn't put a stop on it. It wasn't, let's put rules around it and laws and controls. It was, let's just put a pause on it. Yes. And in the meantime, he starts a new AI company. So
And he's already, as I said, he's already implanted. He's got his first. Now his again, his alleged intention is for humanitarian purposes to help people who can't walk, who've lost the use of a limb or had some sort of a spinal injury or some sort of a brain injury, to be able to get past that. But on the other hand, I can see that we talked about this briefly with other guests, and Penny and I discussed it, the idea of, let's say that they say this thing really works so well, why don't we implant every newborn baby with one of these, so that in case they lose the use of a limb or something happens to them and they become paralyzed, we can automatically fix it. But that'll also enable them to shut you off whenever they want.
That would be the extension of it. The way you get control of the whole population is introduce the structural system where every birth that implant will be implanted. And one would expect some sort of biological nature with it, that it would grow and be sort of symbiotic, or your immune system would be suppressed or genes altered to make that happen. So yeah, that would be a natural extension of how you would see that going forward.
Now, turning to the religious aspect of this, you had mentioned in the past that there are many antichrists leading up to one main antichrist. Eventually, you'd also talked about, we also know that they want to have a one world religion. We had a guest on the other day who said that the one world religion that they want, and I wanted to get your take on this, is Catholicism. They want that to be the one world religion. What is your response to that?
It's a piece, but it's not the whole puzzle. So you have the one world religion that is going to sit on 7 hills, as Revelation states. And for the people who like to cause confusion, it's 7 hills and 7 kings. It's understood both ways, and it's described exactly as I just described it. Those 7 hills tend to be understood in the time of John to be Rome. Babylon, as you take that back to Greek, is the allegorical term that they use for Rome. 7 hills are the 7 hills of ancient Rome, of Romulus and Remus. Palatine Hill was the home of the Sibylline prophecies of the Queen of Heaven and the Mother Goddess aspect, as I think I've talked about on several shows. And that's where you have a branch coming out of the original 7 hills that was outside the original walls of the Roman city till about 800 AD, where the Vaticanus Hill now becomes part of it. Vaticanus Hill was an Etruscan hill, which is the proto Roman society, or the Indo-Aryans, or the giants, the aboriginals, just as the Scythians were the aboriginals for the Greeks. And so they build the religion on top of that. This is an Etruscan, Indo-Aryan, Zoroastrian belief system. And Vaticanus Hill was the branch hill and branch temple and center of the Palatine Hill of the Sibylline prophecies. So you understand that the Vatican Hill, from the aspect, is not included in the 7, but it'll be connected. So you would connect it that way from antiquity. You have a universal religion in Catholicism that has a Jesuit as the leader. The Jesuits aren't in control of everything. They actually report up to the Thelemic tree, into either the Committee of 300 or probably maybe the Council of 33 through the Black nobility. And that the Jesuits are there to bring about the Babylon system and the new Babylon, the Templar dream. And there's a movement within that whole system that it comes together. It comes through the Mary Apparition movement, and who false prophets from the Mary Apparition will try and convert everybody to this universal religion. So this is not the Enochian mysticism that you see in Catholicism today, but you see a movement to change its doctrines and to move it through preternatural forces and prophets to create a universal religion. But it will not be the Babylon religion. It will be part of the Babylon religion, because in the polytheist system, they believe all the religions of the world root back to the old pantheon of gods. They just have different vernacular names for the gods, and that monotheism went rogue. So they'll hit that right at Moses so that they can get Islam, Christianity, and Judaism and say they all go back to Moses, who didn't bring monotheism with him. He brought the religion of Egypt with them. So they're going to convert it into a polytheist aspect, change the doctrine, interpret the Bible allegorically to do that. And the Roman Church will be a big part of it. But Babylon is a universal polytheist religion, and it's a mystery religion and we know that because we're told it's a mystery religion. All of its descriptions in terms of being an adulteress or a prostitute are religious terms, and mystery is mysterion that's the Greek word for initiatory religion. And the Queen Mother Goddess is like the Atma particle, the Brahman, or Sophia, the Mother Goddess of the Gnostics, of the secret societies of the West that created the 12 archons. It includes God of the Bible and Satan, and is the root word for wisdom. And that's why you make that link. Philosophy is the love of Sophia, and the theology for all of the sciences and all of the polytheist religions that they're going to merge together. So they're going to make it like it was before. It'll be a beast religion that was in Rome. It'll be a beast religion that was in Egypt, Assyria, Persia, Greece, and before the flood. And it's the root religion of the beast religion. So it will have a veneer of Christianity, just as the false prophet will talk, will have two horns like a lamb, but will talk like a dragon.
How will they? And this could be the topic for an entire hour, and maybe that's what will make the next discussion. But just kind of as a teaser, and we can go into more detail, as I said, next time. How will they lead people to this new concept, this new religion? Will it be an insidious thing like where they just start slowly manipulating changes in doctrine of the various religions to kind of lead them all to this one religion? Or will it be something like a fake event, like the discovery of some new scrolls? They say, oh, we just uncovered something which shows that this is what we were supposed to have been believing all along.
Yeah. So it comes through the false prophets. And the false prophets do prophecies. And so you can take a lead from one of these apparitions, of the Mary apparitions, for the 6 children that were initiated at Medjugorje in Yugoslavia in the 90s, who have a specific date to come out. And I'm not saying these are the ones, but it'll be them and or others. Francis has recognized the Medjugorje visions and on level with Fatima and Lourdes. And
Right.
they have control over their sites there. So they have a certain date where they're going to come out. They have 10 prophecies they want to bring about. These will be contrived prophecies. In other words, they control the disaster that's coming. They're going to cause it through the whole system. They're going to predict catastrophes. And their message is convert to the one true religion. And if you've heard that term before, that comes out of theosophy as being the true religion, which is the religion that comes out of Gnosticism that produced the New Age, and it's the god of Sophia, the Mother Goddess, and it's the one that unites religion and science for the end time. And so they have 10 prophecies that they're going to come out. So expect them and other ones around the world. If you do not convert to the true religion, this catastrophe is going to happen. They're going to do it through the contrived sorrows that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, 7-8, of wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, famine, earthquakes, and add in Luke's urging of the seas. All things that we're having, only now they're going to predict it. So just as you see coming out of science, if you don't get rid of carbon, if you don't control population, we're going to destroy ourselves from the face of the earth. It's the same theme. And then they'll enter in, convert to the one true religion and worship the true gods, or you'll be destroyed from the face of the earth. And in the end time, just as it was before, and there's that old saying out of Ecclesiastics that we need to understand about the overarching sign that Jesus provided about the days of Noah is what nothing is new under the sun. What was will be again. We will see those same fallen angels walking amongst us that were there before the flood and for the first 100 years or so after the flood, the ones who still rule the council of the gods in Psalm 82 over the 70 nations that they have legal tender over for a short time more in this oath-based system that they created. And we're also going to see a return of those horrible angels that did all the violations to humanity and against creation come out of the abyss before the midpoint. And they're all going to be walking amongst us. And all of those demons are going to be here as well that they're creating these oikotarians for. So they'll get us there through these horrible wars, these horrible contrived catastrophes, and their prophets, just as the priests of science, as I like to call them, and the priests of the green movement are predicting apocalypse. It'll be in that theme, but now they'll put it in specific time frames and the specific disasters to cattle herd everybody into that religion. Convert to the religion or be destroyed from the face of the earth.
Wow.
That's not a very good option.
No. No.
It's a threat. That's a promise. Give us an update on your books and your website and everything else before we run out of time here.
Yeah. So, and I talk a lot about some of the things that we're talking about today in the new book, especially when we get into the technological side and the prophetic side. So, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 2, how understanding prehistory and giants helps to define end time prophecy, is in the printing process that I've talked about in the past and the assembling. It is slated for shipping week of February 12th to the publishers. So it'll go to the distributors and I'll get my books at the same time. So I'll have my books, and Amazon and all others will have books by the end of February if they choose to take delivery. I'm sure they will when they're available. And it was pushed back a little bit because they extended the production runs and on the pre-orders that are going on. So yes, we're getting very close to that book actually being visible. Amazon has the Kindle edition up now for pre-ordering as well. So it will be available on pre-order, and getting very excited. So if you wanted to get a signed copy, or what's the easiest way to order the book is go to my website, the Genesis6conspiracy.com. That's Genesis 6, the number 6 conspiracy.com. I have a generous excerpt of all 84 chapters of book 2, the new one, and also all 98 chapters of book 1. And you can go to book 1 or book 2 to order. So if you wanted to pre-order the new book, go to book 2, and you can pre-order a signed copy from me, or you can link over to barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, amazon.ca, and or over to Kindle, just as you can do with the first book to order. So that's the fastest, easiest way to get hold of the book. And if you did want a signed copy, I have a page for the US, I have a page for Canada and international. So I ship all over the world if you wanted to get a signed copy. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. And if you wanted a little bit more information or ask some questions about some of the things I was talking about today, just go to contact the author. It'll take me probably a month to get back to you with the backlog of emails that continually come in, but I will get back to you.
Then what you need to do is get an AI version of yourself to respond to all the questions.
Yeah, well, I do shows where I just take, and I do one tomorrow. It's 2 hours on Revolution Radio, and it's called AMA, Ask Me Anything.
Well, let me tell you something. We don't ever need a clone or an AI of you. You are the best, and your book is fantastic. Can't wait to get into the second one. And I know you're working on a third, and I just want to thank you for coming on the program on a regular basis and just delighting our audience with some fascinating information. Again, the name is Gary Wayne, and it's the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, the website Genesis, the number 6 conspiracy.com. Gary, thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye. Gary Wayne here on the Awake Nation. He's just just fantastic individual.
I know, he's always
Riveting.
fascinating. Just
riveting.
Totally.
And another riveting individual is coming up next, Brent Thomas of Paranormal Portal. We're not going to want to miss that, so stay right where you are. as the Awake Nation continues on this Tuesday, the 6th of February, 2024. And welcome back to the Awake Nation on this Tuesday, February 6th, 2024, with Penny L.A. Shepard, David Zublick with you. And now another fascinating individual, Mr. Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal. Brent, welcome back. Glad to have you. How you doing today?
Oh, thank you, David. It's a pleasure being with you. And hello, Penny. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm just embracing the day. I tell you what, following Gary's a tough act because, man, that guy is like mental coffee. Just the
yes,
things he says and the depth of his knowledge. That guy will forget more knowledge than I'll ever know.
yeah, but you know what? Yes, but don't discount. We have, just like him. You are one of the most popular guests we have because you get into a lot of really interesting things that nobody else talks about. And so he's got his wheelhouse, and Brent, you have yours. And so
Fair enough.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know, I find the stories that we're going to get in today really interesting because I think that we are really living in a world that is maybe bordered by a lot of other worlds, like the whole multiverse theory or other dimensions.
Oh yeah.
And I want to get into a couple stories today that I found absolutely fascinating and kind of mind-blowing. And are you guys familiar with the Children of Woolpit?
I am not.
Okay, well, prepare your mind. This is pretty wild. And basically, these stories have to do with people that appear in our world that clearly don't seem to belong here. And I find that interesting because it maybe supports the idea that there are maybe between our worlds, there are these portals or some sort of material diaphragms that may expand and contract and create these throughways where these kind of things may happen. And I find them absolutely fascinating. So the first story we're going to get into is the Children of Woolpit, which is from actually the 1100s. It's quite an old story over in Woolpit, England. And it's absolutely bizarre. But
how do you spell that?
Woolpit, just like it sounds.
Okay. Woolpit. Okay.
All
right.
All right. So let me start the story out here. I'm reading from members.ancientorigins.net, the stories. all over the place, but they seem to do a good job posting it. But the story set at some point in the 12th century. The location is the village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England. One day during the harvest, the villagers discovered 2 children loitering around the wolf pits. Those were deep excavations to trap wolves, and apprehended them. Apparently, they had the form of all their limbs like those of other men, but they differed in color of their skin, which was tinged a green color. And let me go down. It says they could not speak English or any language known to the villagers, who escorted them to a local lord, a knight by the name of Sir Richard de Kelm. And here they were offered food, but wouldn't eat anything until some beans, and they were apparently like a long green bean of some kind, and they lived on beans. That was the only thing they would eat. Now, they couldn't communicate, they couldn't talk, they couldn't, they could only, they were small children. So this is, they were clearly out of their element, and they had green skin. Now let me just skip ahead a little bit. They lived on beans until they were eventually introduced and caused to eat other foods. And they lived within a manorial resident of a local lord. And in a short time, the boy sickened and passed away, but the girl survived. She eventually lost her green color, was baptized, and given the position of such sort within the knight's household. And so eventually she learns English or whatever, Old English that was going on in the 1100s. And it says that, I'm sorry, I just pulled up the wrong version, because there was a better version that I had pulled up, but I guess that's the only one I left up. Sorry. But because this is kind of written in an Old English way, and I don't know if that's confusing to some, there was more of a straightforward English, but it says, moreover, so they were from this other land, allegedly is what she claims. And there was no sunlight there. So essentially she goes on to explain that she was out with her brother tending to the herds in the field in their land, which never saw sunlight. It was a perpetual twilight, kind of just a luminous glow, and never got sunny. And they heard the sound of these bells, and it's believed that was the church bells from the church in Woolpit that had somehow transitioned to their realm. And so they followed the sound of the bells and came to a thicket, crawled through that, ended up in somewhat of a cave, and then finally got lost and emerged into this bright light, where they were apparently absolutely terrified. They'd never seen the sun before, and sat just kind of frozen by this wolf pit. And that's when the villagers found them, and they said that they had no idea how they got there. Now, there is ancient writings that seem to corroborate this story, and that after the brother died, she went on to live, allegedly a normal life, and eventually the green tinge left her skin, and she became, I guess, Caucasian, and ended up marrying a deacon from a local nearby village eventually. So she went on to have a normal life. And how these children came to be is an absolute mystery. Nobody is sure where this land is with no sun, and it's corroborated in a few medieval writings. So
I wonder if that is the origin of this little guy.
Oh,
out from the Jolly Green Giant, who eats nothing but beans too.
Yeah.
and the origin of Jack and the Beanstalk, perhaps. Who knows?
Sure. And possibly some of the fairy stories of different colored people running around. It's anybody's guess, but a fascinating story. Now, is it for sure true? Well, there are historical references that were written by the several, or well, at least a few of writers from that time, and chroniclers that went back to reference these old manuscripts and stuff. So it allegedly seems like it might have actually happened. And it's a fascinating story because, again, it seems to show that somehow there was this bridge between the two worlds, and somehow the sound of the church bells in Woolpit had drawn them forth. They'd never heard this sound before. They were absolutely mesmerized and followed it until they ended up in our world. So
I've always believed that what you're talking about, these things like fairies and and this sort of thing there's always an origin, a truth to them somewhere.
Absolutely.
And I think they're very real. I think we had a woman on, and I can't remember her name, or we talked about a woman who had some sort of she had a near-death experience. That's what it was. And in the near-death experience, she was able to see things that we couldn't see. Like in this near-death experience, she was in her own garden, and she could see these little creatures on the back of the leaves of tomato plants in the garden that looked like little people, and they little fairies, and they looked up and saw her, and they said, "Oh, she can see us." Because she was in like a near-death experience state or something. So maybe there are things that are not to the naked eye, but some people all of a sudden, like out of some sort of a third eye use, the pineal gland, see things at a certain point that we're not all supposed to see. I wonder if that's a case. Or
Oh yeah, I mean that's very, 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 very likely. In fact, I think, going right along with your line of thinking there, and this is spiderwebbing a little bit, but I think that a lot of people's paranormal experiences, even though they may seem absolutely physical and real, may be induced by just being in the right state of mind at that time. Like how many people have seen Bigfoot in the forest? Well, when you're in the forest, you're relaxed. You're kind of just releasing and letting go, and maybe that's opening up the pineal gland, a suddenly there's a Bigfoot, and of course people observe them disappearing, like sometimes just melting into nothingness. And what if that isn't the Bigfoot disappearing, but that state disappearing from the observer's mind? And so it
could be that, or it could be the fact that when the pineal gland is open, you're able to see things that other people can't see, including a very real Bigfoot, which instead of being a creature native to the earth, which has just never been captured, is actually something that teleports between one dimension to another. And only with that pineal gland open are you able to see it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating stuff. And that's the interesting part about all the paranormal, is because there's one common denominator in every paranormal experience, and that is the observer. I mean, somebody has to be there to observe it, and that seems overly simplistic, but I think people treat the paranormal as if it's happening to them,
right?
And maybe dismiss the fact that maybe they are facilitating the experience in some way that they never considered.
Sure.
And I think that's maybe the part that's been missed in all of this. And so it's a fascinating idea, and I think you're absolutely on the right track. I think that we are more of a key element to these things than we believe. We just, rather than being victims, maybe we're actively making it happen, but we just don't realize it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So besides these children of Woolpit, it's kind of like you remember the movie They Live? Like John Carpenter, where you can see what people really look like behind those special. Are there other types of individuals that people see that don't appear to be native of this planet? Realm.
Yeah, and those are things that, those are things that I had planned to do for my next appearance, is things like the little people, gnomes, leprechauns, leprechauns, and pukwudgies, and duende, and all these little diminutive proto-pygmy type people that people are seeing. But then again, most of us are like, what are you talking about? Never seen anything like that. But some people have seen, like, the garden gnomes. They look like the little statues, the red caps and all of that. And they're
they came from somewhere. I mean, the origin of these had to have come from somewhere. And, there could be just very small. Take a look at, remember the guy that was Tom Thumb?
Yeah.
He was a real person, real small. Maybe he was some sort of a gnome or something, like maybe he wasn't really 100% human. We don't know, because at that time they didn't have the medical technology to take him up. I don't know if they took him apart after he died or something like that, or did an autopsy or something, but I think there's a lot to it.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's very possible. I mean, what if one of them just decided, hey, I like this world, I want to be a part of it, and I'm now the smallest one ever. So it's a great idea. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that in a future appearance, because I do want to get into those as well, and there's a lot to dig through. So The other story that I wanted to bring is much more recent than that. And this is, have you heard of the story of the man from Taured?
No, the man
No?
from
Okay. This one is really interesting. And it happened in July 1954 in Japan. And
Okay.
here's the story. It's absolutely compelling and interesting. It says officials at the Tokyo airport in Japan were confronted with a puzzling problem. A traveler from Europe with a passport for a country called Taured, Taured, but because the traveler looked European and not Japanese, claimed his country was in Europe and carried money from several European countries. The airport officials felt that there had to be a simple explanation for why they didn't know the country on the official looking passport. So they pulled the traveler to a room and started to make inquiries. And as they tried to locate information on Taured, the traveler started to become angry. He stated this was his third trip this year to Japan for his company, and that he'd been making such trips for the past 5 years. Therefore, he couldn't understand why the delay could be with approving his trip. But the company he claimed to be coming to visit said they didn't know who he was. And the officials could find no proof of the existence of the company he claimed to work for, nor did the hotel he claimed to have reservations with. They didn't know who he was either. He could speak Japanese well, among other languages, which is seemingly further proof of his previous contact with Japan. He spoke French natively and was genuinely shocked that he could not find his country on a world map that was presented to him. He stated that his country was located where the map showed the Principality of Andorra, along with parts of France and Spain, and that Taured had existed for almost 1,000 years, so it should have been on the map. Not surprisingly, he soon demanded to talk to the government officials to clear up the matter, and since he couldn't be detained at the airport's room forever, the airport authorities arranged a room for the man at a hotel, and that he could wait until he was handled. 2 immigration officials were set to guard the room, and the unknown traveler was not to leave until authorities had made a decision on the whole problem. He was served dinner in his room and soon went to sleep. It had been a long, perplexing day for him after all, and though the door to the room was guarded all night, the strange man was gone when they checked in the morning.
Yeah.
So he disappeared. You know, and that's where you got to wonder, like when these anomalies happen, is there some, I don't know, frequency thing that draws them back to where they're supposed to be? Or, you know, I mean, it's like a trip to the Twilight Zone, for God's sakes, right?
Now, you said he had currency from his own country or claim.
Yeah, from countries around Europe. Yeah, that's what they said.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, but of course, now, did he seem perplexed that he couldn't find his own country on a globe or a map?
He was already perplexed that they didn't know about it, and then they did present him with a map, and he's like, "Where is it? It should be here." And he pointed to the area of Andorra, which is on the northern part of France. You know, Spain. I think northern. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm geographically challenged personally, but
no, it's okay. But I'm wondering if at some point that was an ancient name for a city that is located in that area where France, that part of France is now, or did they do any historical searches back to see if there was ever a country with that name? Or
well, apparently the country itself had issued him the passport, so it would say, you know, the country of Taured as the name, which was just puzzling. Yeah,
that would really blow your mind to have a passport.
Yeah, crazy stuff. It just shows. Again, you know, we think of reality as this real concrete construct, like it's, you know, it's rigid and it has rules and laws and that are absolute. But then weird things happen, and it just really kind of cooks your bacon, you know.
Have you ever covered any stories about people who claim to have been, who are here, that either claim to have come from our past through a portal or time travel, or from the future? I know we've heard of stories of people who claim they're from the year 20 something way, you know, and they've come back here and they've made TikTok videos or something, and they say this is what's going to happen and all this kind of stuff. A lot of it's weird, you know, but are there any cases you can speak to about that?
Well, you know, I've certainly familiar with stories like that. In the case of, I think it was the Montauk Project, where 2 gentlemen, brothers, came back and said, "Well, I shot forward in time, and I was in the year, 21 something. And the
Yeah.
other one was like, yeah, but I did a couple jumps and ended up in 27 or 3,000 something. And those claims are, absolutely, I don't want to say bonkers, because who knows? I do believe that time is probably fluid, but it's hard to wrap a logical mind around that. It's like, well, how did that happen? And the claims that they bring back are, I mean, how can you challenge them in any way other than, well, I don't believe you, or I do believe you, but neither can they be validated nor invalidated. Now,
Yeah.
Coming from the past, I'm just racking my brain thinking about that. I mean, there's a lot of people claiming to be from the future that I've talked about over the years, and that Montauk one is the one that I think Al Bielek was his name. He was attached to the Montauk or something like that. And from the past, though, I don't know. I'm sure I have. It's just there's such a jumble.
We have a guest. What is his name?
Brian Singh. He's actually attached to the Philadelphia experiment, but they put me in time travel projects too. I'm just trying to figure out what it was, because I have little bits of pieces of futures that some happen and some maybe are going to happen.
Right. And then you got
also Skip Press, who says he's Mark Twain.
Yes, Skip Press has recollections of his past in which he looks like him too.
Yeah, he does.
I looked at pictures of him. He looks like Mark Twain. He said when he was 5, he knew he was going to be a writer. And when I was very young, when I was like about 5 years old, I was writing, and I, like Crayola or whatever, did a little card said I work for God. And I pretty much, I wanted to be a writer, a journalist, and a reporter. And at one point, God said, "Don't worry about being a singer, Penny. You will be writing later on in life," which I just never thought it would be, this. It's 65, writing about, Hollywood and MK Ultra and military industrial entertainment complex. But God definitely put David and I together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know that.
Now, is the Mark Twain guy, it was at a past life thing?
His name is, yes. Well, it's obviously not now, but when Skip was 5, he said he knew he was going to be a writer. He's been writing forever. He's written over 50 books.
Wow.
He wrote a book on screenwriting. He also was in the cult of Scientology.
You got out of that.
Yes. And so he used to write for that. He knew L. Ron Hubbard. He dated I believe his executive secretary. I could be wrong. He'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Wow. And the other part you think about, at least I think about when I think about time travel from the future, it's like, but is it a relative thing? Like, is the future fluid, or is it a concrete thing?
I don't know. I think certain events, when Dan Burish was talking about his experiments in what they call the Looking Glass, a different project. And then he was with his girlfriend. They were recording, and she said, "I feel deja vu." And they looked particularly mortified because they were saying that's just a time repeating. And they were working on the Looking Glass project. I don't know where Dan Burish is today, but he said there possibly are an infinite amount of timelines. And then also we understand that time is not linear. It is all running concurrently in different timelines. But there are certain things that they said that would actually happen that they cannot traverse, which is why intervention between extraterrestrial factions is somewhat not permitted, because then it was like in Star Trek where they said we have a non-intervention pact with these civilizations because we cannot interfere with their historical
development.
pathway. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think time is fluid too, because you ever notice, like sometimes how something can seem like it's taken forever and yet it's short at the same time.
Yeah.
Like for example, it's always seems to me that January is the longest month of the year. It seems to take forever from New Year's Eve to January 31st, and then the rest of the year seems to go by a little bit faster? Or have you ever had a situation where someone died 20 years ago, but it feels like they just died 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago? But you know what I'm talking about? This fluid. I think time is a construct that we create here on this planet.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, and I think it's truly time is relative from our perspectives, and I don't mean that's not time speeding up or slowing down as a perceptual thing, but I think there are some things where time may actually slow down because it's and it's usually the hard times, unfortunately, and maybe that's because those are our biggest learning moments. So we have to, like, the continuum has to slow down to make sure we really get it or something.
Yes. Well, I've actually experienced slowing time down.
Oh,
And
really?
So is my best friend Susie. She's experienced slowing time down, which I believe you can. I mean, time essentially stops, like in Flash, where you're moving around, but they're not.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
kind of thing. And I think
Have
that's
you ever looked at a
capability that we
clock?
have.
You ever looked at a clock and it'll say 11:25 and 10 seconds, and you look away and you're doing some other things, and then you look back up at the clock and it still says 11:25 and 10 seconds. It feels like the second
Is it
hand
gets the clock
moves.
off?
Yeah.
It's like
And it's amazing that a lot of times, like in my own experience, I've experienced the slowing time. And it was times where I was in grave danger, and like suddenly everything just went, ooh. And I'm able to think through scenarios that like normally would have taken me, a lot of time, but just
Yes.
happened within the space of a fraction of a second. And one time I was sliding as a child, and I accidentally missteered, and I was going over this embankment where there was boulders and such below. And as soon as I went over over the edge and was in the air, my mind, everything just went really slow motion, like bullet time in the Matrix.
right.
And I was able to look at the situation, and I saw that there was a log laying horizontally along the edge, near the edge of the cliff. And I was able to I told myself, I gotta land on that log. That's the only way I'm gonna make it out of this without getting very badly hurt. And sure enough, my feet planted, I leaned back against the wall, and then everything went back to normal, and the sled crashed on the boulders below.
Yeah.
But it was that moment where everything just went, ooh. And it was like, oh, okay, let me examine the situation. It was really surreal. But
in some cases, your whole life flashes before your eyes when you're
yes,
in a near-death experience or you almost die.
yeah.
Sometimes I've died a couple of times, and my whole life didn't actually flash in front of my eyes. The one time when I was coming home from the White House, it's a long story, so I'll try to make it short. Not that White House. I got in a car accident, and I essentially watched the entire accident from outside and above the car.
Oh, wow.
And then I died, and I say I died. Everyone else has near-death experience. And I was revived by essentially an illegal alien. So I don't have anything against illegal aliens. And he wasn't like an illegal alien from Pluto. Okay. He was
from Pluto. Yeah.
Because I think they might be legal, actually.
The ones from Pluto, they probably are illegal.
They have a passport from Taured.
Right?
That sounds like a planet, and not like a country. I'm from the planet Taured.
It's like in Men in Black when you see all the aliens coming in. Because I remember telling my drummer, I said the only illegal alien here is Satan.
Good call. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, Brent, because I want people to watch your show and everything else. So
sure, I do live streams on YouTube, youtube.com/paranormal portal. I do a podcast as well, which is the same name, but a very different experience. So you can find that on all the major podcast platforms, and go to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you can find all the links and information there.
It is always just an honor and a joy to have you on the program, and I'm looking forward to the next time when we'll talk about some other otherworldly little visitors who may be of the very short variety, and we'll have a lot of fun with that amongst other things. You are just the best. Brent Thomas, thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Brent Thomas, paranormalportal.net. And do want to remind you once again, too, that if you are traveling On the roads, gasoline is not cheap, but you can save money on gasoline and get more out of your tank with Get More Tank. Get More Tank is a little tablet. It's an additive that you put in your gas tank. It has active ingredients that add big mileage to every tank of gas. It's made in America. Now, it's been used by truckers and people in heavy industry for years, but now the same formula is available to you. Get More Tank works on any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers your emissions, and you're going to feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank, again, works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, mowers, blowers, snow throwers. Hey, if you got an engine, you need Get More Tank. And right now, you can get a 5-pack on sale for $22.22 plus shipping. Use promo code AWAKENATION, and you're going to get an additional 10% off of that. And really, it extends the life of your tank. So do that today. GetMoreTank.com. Now it's time to bring in our next guest, who's always fascinating. And we're talking about none other than Alan Gunnar Lindbloom here on the Awake Nation. How you doing, Alan?
How you doing, guys?
How are you?
I need to run out. I need to order some of that Get More Tank, man.
It's a great product. It really does extend the life of your engine.
I checked it out. I'm gonna get some. You know, I mean, it's probably in the long run. I'm sure it does save me a bunch of money, cleans my engine, make it last longer. I'm down. I'm 100% gonna get some of that. So I was listening to your last conversation, but I'm always fascinated by that guy. I really got to have him on my new YouTube channel called. Sure. I got a new YouTube channel called Dragonstorms, Ancient Myths, Legends, and Lore, and we talk about stuff. And it's doing pretty good.
He'd be a perfect guest for that. He'd be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He's perfect guest. And we're doing pretty good. Like our last show has got 2,800 views in 5 days, so it's pretty good. It's getting a little traction, and we're getting more. We just started it from scratch, but the producer, the guy who's making it, is really good at editing and producing it. So I'm just co-host, but we'd love to have him on. So I got to talk to him about that. But I got a lot to say about listening to that conversation about time, right?
Okay.
So I spent 13 years in prison, and just like you said, in certain situations or scenarios, time slows down, and prison is one of those scenarios. In prison, time slows down terribly, horribly, and it's unbelievable. You could just, a day is like a month. You know what I'm saying? Every day it's just tick tock, because all you're thinking about is getting home.
Right.
You're just thinking about getting home to your family, to your girl, to your friends, doing the things that you love. Like I was always thinking about hunting and fishing and camping, which is funny. Right now, I just did a 3-day adventure in the wilderness, all alone, winter camping survival. And there's a reason I'm doing that is because, I happen to subscribe to a couple channels on YouTube, guys who do that. And they're enormous, man. I mean, enormous. There's a channel called Outdoor Boys, who's just a kind of nerdy guy. Everybody should go check him out. It's kind of this nerdy dude who just goes out in the wilderness alone and survives for a few days in the wood and just roughs it, off the wilderness. This guy's got, I think, 7 or 8 million subscribers. 8 million subscribers. And he posted a video yesterday. It got 3 million views in one day. In one day. 3 million views in a day. Some of his videos. You
need to go out in the woods, Penny, and survive.
No, I'm not going out in the woods. The woods are on here. Susie's out there with a gun killing snakes and stuff. We don't actually kill any animals, but
we should film her and put that on.
We don't eat animals. We don't kill animals. We're different kind of people. But
this guy will go out and fish, try to catch some fish and hunt. He doesn't really shoot too much. He's not really that good of a hunter or a good fisherman, but he does love fishing, he says. But I've watched him fish. He's just not a really high end, I go out trout fishing. I'm kind of a master trout fisherman. Really, I am. It's one of the things, probably the thing I'm most passionate about in life is trout fishing, brook trout fishing. And then writing would be after that, second thing. But anyways, so this guy, he's killing it out there, and he throws a couple sponsors in, he's got this little handsaw or whatever. And this guy's making $100,000 a video, and he's self-producing them. And he's probably got a couple $1,000 into them, for the travel and the gear and the expense and gas. And this guy's killing it. So I'm like, but people have always said to me, do more outdoor stuff, do more. Because I do a lot of outdoor stuff in the spring and summer. I'm out trout fishing. I make these videos, and a lot of them I fans and followers on YouTube are like, they love it. But a lot of the people who are like subscribed to my channel to hear gangster stories and mafia tales and hear mafia authors and ex-mobsters, they don't care about that stuff. But I don't really care about the mafia stuff. That's the thing. I personally have no interest in the mafia. I don't have any interest in the trivia of the mafia, who did kill who did what, who ratted on who. I never have. I never was even fascinated by the mafia, even though I grew up in and around it. I didn't care about those old men. They were just my old uncles. And in my mind, this is legitimately how I thought. In my mind, those old men can't whoop my ass. So why would I be afraid of them? Why would I, I mean, I respected them because they were my elders and because they were mob. They're, mafioso. And so I respected them naturally. But in my mind, I was just like, I don't care about these freaking guys. They can't whoop my ass. I'd knock one of these old men out in one punch and laugh. They can't do, and then they could send somebody with a gun, but I got a gun, so I can shoot him before he shoots me. And so, I mean, why is this guy any more interesting or dangerous than me or whatever? I'm not jocking nobody. So there's a lot of people, though, in the mafia genre who worship these people, like hero worship them and idolize them, and they just mob groupies, right? I'm not really into it, so I finally just kind of, obviously I was promoting a mafia novel. My novels to be a king are about a fictional mafia family. So I kind of used stories from my past life that involved sometimes mobsters and mafia that I was involved with. And I'd share stories and then, to promote my books and say, make sure to check out my books. But I found over like 3 years of having a YouTube channel that all these mob groupies, there's a couple problems with them. One is most of them are broke bums who live in their mother's basement. And they don't have any money. They don't read 500-page novels. They don't buy, $25 novels and read 500. They just don't. And I was, trying to promote my merch too, Arctic Apparel, but they're not paying. This fleece is $90. They're not paying. They don't have the money for that. So I kind of gave up on the whole thing. And the trolls were really weird and whatever. And so I really started making more outdoor videos, the things that I'm really passionate about, like out trout fishing and hunting and stuff like that. And my market shrunk. But now this is where it gets interesting. About a month ago, Armand Assante, who is the Golden Globe winner for the movie HBO hit Gotti, very famous actor. I'm friends with him. I'm working with him on a TV project. He calls me and he says, I got a friend in Chicago who's a producer, and he's been bugging me for years to get involved, maybe do an outdoor series. He's like, I think you're the perfect guy. Like, you're charismatic, you're funny, you go out and do these adventures, you're always catching the big fish, you're always, you don't follow me, so you probably don't watch any of my videos, but I have some crazy ass adventures out there in the woods, and just insane stuff. For example, I caught 2 17-inch brook trout in one hole within 5 minutes. Just keep in mind,
that's incredible.
Yeah, that a 17-inch brook trout is a 1 in probably 500 lifetimes. It's meaning only 1 out of 500 trout fishermen in their life will catch a 17-inch brook trout. 1 in 500. I caught 2 in 5 minutes in the same hole, and so this is interesting stuff. And I've caught so many trout, big trout, in places you wouldn't think there would be any trout. I mean, I'm driving down the road and I see a little culvert that's like a 4-inch wide creek, and tell my wife, I'm in the middle of the wilderness and nowhere. I'm 20 miles into the wilderness. I say, pull over. I want to hit that culvert right there, because there's like a little hole where it comes to the road, the culvert, and it creates a little pocket, and that could be a good spot for a trout. I've walked down there, dropped a worm in there, and pulled 14-inch trout out of this little, it's the river is only 6 inches deep, and but there's a hole that's maybe 2 feet deep there, and pulled 14-inch brookies out of there, and got it on video while my wife videos and stuff. It's just, I mean, I have a lot of cool adventures. So Armand Assante, he's watching these adventures, and he says, I watch all your outdoor shows. I love it. And what did he say? He said, it's enrapturing just to see your zeal for life when you're out there fishing. I can only imagine what it feels like after having spent 13 years in prison, dreaming about these adventures for those 13 years, day and night, when time stood still. And then now I'm finally out there enjoying it. And it's like, I'm living vicariously through you, watching you, have so much fun deer hunting. And I shot 2 deer in 30 seconds with a crossbow during rifle season from a tree stand, which all of that, if you put it together, is insanity and sounds impossible. And when I posted the video, it got 50,000 views in like a week and 1,000 shares. And everybody thought I was lying. Nobody thought that I was lying. There's no way you could reload a crossbow in a tree stand in 30 seconds and while a buck is sneaking in on you and nail it. But I did it. So these crazy adventures, I want to get him, like if I could just get a camera crew follow me. So Armand Assante calls this guy. He says, I got the guy. He's perfect for your show. Turns out the guy just had a stroke. So he's like recovering for a stroke. So that's kind of, I don't know if it'll ever happen or But I'm telling Armand, I'm like, dude, we could put $5,000 into a show, right? Fly me out to Alaska, or rent a snowmobile, pack up my gear, head out into the wilderness for 3 or 4 days. Just me being myself, or I could bring Armand Asante with me. If I brought Armand Asante with me, are you kidding me, man?
Oh yeah, you guys would that's a whole, that would be a great show.
Yeah, it's a home run, right? And he's a really outdoor guy. He lives on 240 acres outside of New York, about 45 minutes out of Manhattan, and 240 acres. His property's worth like $100 million, and legit. Like it's think about that. 45 minutes from Manhattan, 240 acres. It's zoned for like half-acre slots. He could sell that property for $100 million in a minute, but he doesn't want to. He keeps it. He loves it. He likes to hike in the woods. When I went and stayed with him for 6 days, I took his 4-wheeler out and was like driving through the property, and it was great. He loves it. He's got a Jeep that with the top off, big old Jeep, and he goes bogging through the mud and stuff on his property. Anyways,
how old is Armand Asante right now?
He's 72, but he looks a lot younger. He works out every day.
Okay.
He's very fit. He eats really healthy. You know, he doesn't do drugs or anything like that. And it's just he's funny story is when I was there. This is a funny story. When I was at his house, he says, "You want these THC gummies? Not THC, but these CBD gummies." You know, and I said, "Why?" He's like, "Well, Mike Tyson gave me them." And he's like, one day I had back pain or something, so I thought I'd take them, right? And I had like a reaction to them, and I freaked out, and I was like tripping for like 4 hours, and I almost went to the hospital or something. He's like, I was wondering if there was THC in it or whatever, but I'll never take them again. You can have them. So I took them, and they do help you sleep, and I didn't have any weird reactions to them. They didn't get me high or nothing, but taking one at night before bed, I always sleep really good with them. So, but anyways, if I did a show with Armand Asante out in the wilderness, just one flagship show, me and him out in the wilderness surviving for 3-4 days, right? And then after that, it's just me, because or me with a friend, or me with anybody, me and you. I could take you out there. We would have a hit show, and we could probably get, like this guy, get 2-3 million, 4-5 million views per show, and make a ton of money. Throw a couple sponsors in there, for whatever, like Skidoo snowmobiles. That's use a Skidoo snowmobile.
Or Bass Pro Shops or something.
Or whatever. Yeah. I mean, something like Skidoo might give me $10,000 to promote them, something. So now you get 2-3 sponsors per show, and then plus your ad revenue from YouTube. When you get 5 million views, you're still going to make 20, 30, 50,000. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I just did. And when that's another time where time stood still, because when you're out there in the cold and you're freezing your butt off at night dude, I mean, I roughed it. Like right. I went and roughed it, bro. And then just a little tiny tent. Tonight, I have a video I'm editing, and it's when I built a shelter. So after that, I built like a little wood shelter survival. Basically, to show people, like, if you're out in the woods stranded and you're lost and you have to survive in the cold, snow out, whatever, you have to build a shelter. So I showed them how to build like a teepee shelter using pine boughs and stuff like that, and just enough to keep you warm. You heat up rocks in the fire. You heat the rocks up in the fire, and then you wrap them in aluminum foil. Then you bring them into your teepee shelter, and it keeps you warm through the night. And anyways, just doing stuff like that. Apparently, you can get hundreds of millions of views. This guy's got like 1 billion views on all his videos. It's crazy, man.
Well, I think the idea would be fantastic, and it's always somebody who does something a little bit off, a little bit that gets these views. I think it's a fantastic idea. You know who would be good for you to do it with would be Tim Allen.
I would love that. I love Tim Allen. He's a Detroit guy.
I know, he's got a home in Birmingham. He was just here. He just performed at the Fox Theater a couple of. But last weekend,
I would love that talk to Tim Allen for sure. And he's an ex-criminal, cokehead, got busted. He can relate.
But, but it's not just that. It's just that he's like, he's got that persona of being the outdoor guy, the tool man. The two of you together, it probably would be hilarious.
Oh, it'd be genius. It would be genius. We could have the biggest show on YouTube if we did a regular show but here's the thing. It wouldn't be just out surviving 4 or 5 days in the wilderness of Alaska. We would go all over the world to the jungles of like Honduras and like all over Southeast Asia and the Australian outback and all over the world, where we just go on these adventures where it's just like, here's what we have: a saw, a backpack with some gear, fishing gear, string, whatever, just basic stuff. And we just go out there and survive. Maybe build a snare trap, like snare a rabbit for dinner or something, and just just do whatever you got to do. I I ate a Russian MRE. That's all I brought for food was 2 eggs and some bacon for breakfast. But for dinner, I had a Russian MRE that my friend gave me, which is a meals ready to eat. It's like a packed, right. And I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't even read the package. So I just kind of was like mystery meat. I'd open it up and go, oh, and some of it was really weird, not good. But the meat, like the chili was actually really good. And the beef roast was really good. So, I mean, it just some chocolate for dessert and had some like energy drinks and stuff like that. But it was good. I mean, I haven't had enough food off of that to last about 2.5 days. And I stayed for 3. So I was like hungry, but I had this 2 eggs, some bacon I made for breakfast one morning. But I mean, it's just fun out in the woods, surviving, building shelters, being in my element alone. It's just dead silent. The birds, you hear a few birds chirping like chickadees and stuff. And it's just, I love it. And I hope that people will watch it and enjoy it and be like, oh, this is super cool, man. I need to see more of this. And if God willing, somebody says, hey, I'll produce this and put up the money and you guys can go wherever, and Armando Sante, he's like down for it, and I'm like, he's 72 years old, but he's still fit. I mean,
he was.
Yeah, it'd be tough to do some of the stuff. But here's the thing. All you have to do is just kind of show up. I'll do all the work. You know what I'm saying? He can do the camp stuff, like cooking and stuff around the camp, but all the hard work, getting firewood, chopping firewood, building shelters, dragging logs, all that. I can do all that. And I'm 50, but I still get it in. You know what I'm saying?
You don't look 50 years old. You look, that's pretty good, man. I thought you were younger than that.
Back to prison, man. I time slowed down when I was in prison.
Yeah. Although if that's the way to stay young, I'll pass.
Yeah, well, for sure. They do say that a lot. A lot of people say prison preserves you. I think it can, but I also think that it can,
unless you're a pedophile. And
that too. But
then you're.
I think it can aid you depending on how much you stress over it. That's the thing. Like if you're really stressing in there and anxious about people violently hurting you or preying on you or every day is stressful or whatever. I wasn't, because I believe God was protecting me, and he was.
Well, plus you could protect you're a pretty big guy. Nobody would have messed. You would have beaten the crap out of them.
I would have beat the crap out of anyone who messed with me. And I carried myself in that fashion. I carried myself in a way that said, if you try me, I will beat your brains out. And if we have to go to war, or you got to come back with a knife and stab me with your crew or whatever, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't want no trouble. Don't bother me. I'm respectful to everybody. I'll stay out of your way. You stay out of mine. But if you do push me, I'll go that distance and I will beat your brains out. And so people left me alone. I was a big guy. I was always one of the biggest muscle bound white guys on the compound. But that don't matter when you got gangs of 50, 60, 100 guys, 200 guys, 300, sometimes thousands of guys, the racial gangs. You might have 500, Moabites, Muslims, Nation of Islam guys. And they're all racist. They all hate white guys, and they all basically expect white guys to be scared of them and like kiss their ass. I didn't, and that bothered them. They were like almost like, I can't believe this white boy is not scared of us, and I didn't care. Like there was many incidents that were, and like one time there was this big dude. I still remember his name is Q. He's a big muscle bound guy, bigger than me, muscle. I'm very strong. I seen him in the weight pit. Powerful guy. Been down 20 years. Probably got locked up when he was about 17. So now he's probably 37, 38 years old. He don't like me. I can tell. There's various reasons I could get into him. But one day we were in the kitchenette and I was cooking these calzone, like hot pocket calzones in the toaster, right? And I put them in there and they got stuck. So now I got them, the toaster, and I'm upside down shaking it. And that dude, who I know don't like me for several reasons, I hear him say to this other black dude, he says, "You see this mother effer? You see, you trashing our stuff. I swear I'm going to smash the toaster on the ground one of these. I'm going to smash the toaster on the ground one of these days, mother effer." But he's saying it to another dude who's like, 10 feet away from me. And I turn around and say, "Hey, man, go ahead, smash the toaster. I don't care. I'm going home in a year. It's your toaster. You're here for life." And he looks at his boy. He could get this absolute rage. And he says to his boy, "You hear this mother effer? One of these days I'm going to knock one of these mother effers out. One of these days I'm going to knock one of these mother effers. I'll knock one." I said, "Hey, bro, I'm right here. You want to talk to me instead of him? I'm right here. Are you talking to me? You're going to knock me out?" I said, "I'm right here, bro. Why are you telling him what you're going to do? I'm right here." And he kind of looks at the dude and goes, "You see this mother? You hear what I'm talking about? You see it?" And he walks away. I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I thought, bro. That's what I thought." And then 2 days later, he wanted to be my friend in the day room, like try to talk to me. I'm like, dude, they're coward. This is a dude who probably killed somebody with a gun when he was 17 years old, went to prison, buffed up, had good genetics, slave bred genetics, buffed up, got big. And now he probably been in 2 fights over the last 20 years in prison. Maybe won one of them. The cops broke it up in 20 seconds, so it really wasn't even a fight. Meanwhile, when I got locked up when I was 30, and I was fighting and brawling in clubs in the street and all, like, on a weekly basis. I mean, if I told you how many fights I was in, fist fights, you wouldn't believe it. You'd just say there's no way. And I've knocked out more people than you would believe either. Like, I lost count in like 30. This is knockout, one punch knockouts. So, I mean, I've been in a lot of fights. I'm not like you. This guy had been in prison his whole life, protected by the officers. And then the fight breaks out, officers break it up in 10 seconds. They tase you if you don't break it up. Me, I was in the street beating and smashing, fighting for my life, and there was no cops coming to break it up. When I was fighting in a club or in the parking lot of a club or in a knife fight in the street or whatever, nobody was coming to my rescue. No cops, no nothing. It was me or them. I'm going to freaking beat this guy unconscious, or he's going to hurt me really bad, possibly kill me. So I'm fighting for my life every single time. Or when I knock a guy out, it was so I wouldn't have to fight. I knew if a guy was pretending to be tough, I just knock him out. Then I don't have to fight and get my knuckles all busted up and rip my clothes up and get blood all over and hurt my face and all that. I just break the guy's jaw and knock him out with one punch. That's how I saw it. And then the fight's over and I go back to go back to having a drink. Anyway, these guys like that in prison, they don't know. They're most of them are terrified of that. They're cowards. They go in there and right away they join a gang. Right. So they have strength in numbers and they're terrified. But then they look at someone like me who's supposed to be scared of the big black predators of prison or the Nation of Islam, and I'm totally not. I just mind my own business and have no fear of them. That bothers some of them. Some of them are just like, some of the old heads are just like, they like that. Like, this dude's an OG, man. He's a gangster. He ain't scared of nobody. He does his thing. And they shake my hand. They break bread with me. They, food. But a lot of them are just cowards, and they see me as two things. They're like, either that dude's truly a bad mother effer or he's crazy. Because there's a lot of mentally ill guys in prison, and so people I think thought I was crazy, or some people would say he was a bad mother effer, because my reputation from the street did follow me. A lot of people, as soon as I hit a compound, right away people were like, oh, I knew that dude from the street, or I heard about that guy in the street. He's a killer with his fist. He's a bad mother effer. Don't mess with him. Blah blah blah. Plus his family, mafia, blah blah blah. So nobody really bothered me. But anyway, time sure went slow in prison. That's all I'm saying.
If let me ask you this, because I've never spoken with someone who has spent any time in prison. As someone who spent the amount of time that you did, is prison nothing more than, I mean, do they do any sort of rehabilitation of people when they're in there, or is it just put them aside and
housing? Yeah, no, they don't do nothing. They do make a soft attempt. I mean, before you go home, to put you in, like, I had to take this like 20-week violence, it's called VPP or something like that. Violent prevention program. All right. Okay. It's really stupid. And we had to do homework, and we had to sit there with this really annoying woman who clearly thought she was better than us and thought she was smarter than us. And she just was like trying to, all of us in there, like 12 of us had to go in there like 5 times a week for like 2 hours for 20 weeks and pretend we were learning from what we were getting. It was a joke. And she knows it. She knew it was a joke too. It was perfunctory. We went through the motions. We got the certificate so the parole board can see we got it. But no, they don't really do nothing. It's a misnomer when they call it corrections. When they say, Michigan Department of Corrections is a total misnomer. It should be called the Michigan Department of Criminal Housing and mentally ill, mentally ill and criminal housing. Because what you're really doing, you're just housing criminals and the mentally ill or criminally insane or whatever. There's nothing. They don't make any attempt to try and make you better. Like I could fix our prisons. First of all, if you even knew, bro, you're from Michigan, you get it. Look up how much money Michigan spends on the prison budget. It'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind. It's more than half. It's like almost 2/3 of the entire budget in Michigan is spent on corrections. That doesn't include prosecutors, judges, lawyers, court-appointed lawyers, cops, all that. If you literally added it all up, between corrections and all our state, Michigan, spends about 75% of its GDP on arresting, convicting, and imprisoning its own citizens. They've made a business out of it. 75% of your tax dollars are going to try and find your family or you, arrest you, convict you, and imprison you for as long as we possibly can. And I could fix it easy. I'd be like, the money you spend on corrections, build long-term rehab programs, mental rehabbing, like socioeconomic rehab, teach people job skills, teach them that they have value, teach them that they don't have to use drugs to be happy in life. Yeah, I'm talking 2-3 year long programs where, if you commit a really bad crime, instead of putting them in prison for 15 years, put them in this program for 3 years or 5 years or whatever. This completely reprograms their mind and how they see life and how they see themselves. And when they walk out of there, they'll have a certificate, they'll have job skills, they'll have a job. We'll make sure they have a job, make sure they have housing, they'll have confidence, and they'll believe they have value. They'll have a network, a social network of influence, family, loved ones, and that when they get out, they can go right and become normal citizens. Nope, they don't want to do that. Instead, we're just going to arrest them, throw them in prison, house them, build more prisons, stack them in there. And, most of the prisons are stacked, double stacked. Now, you're supposed to have a single man cell. They got 2, 3, 4 guys in the cell stacked in there. They get more money. They just get more subsidies from the federal government. And it's all a scam. It's all a scam. And if you look into it, the people who decide how much time people get and build the prisons, all that, they all have interest in the food services and the phone service. The phone alone makes a company like, I don't know, $65 million a year. That's in profit. $65 million a year in profit from the prison phone system. $65 million. That's crazy. Just from the phone. Somebody's just cashing in. Ching. You don't think they're giving a kickback to the government? I could go on and on. I won't get into it. But what I'll say is that I saw the contract. When the contract was up and we signed a new contract, the state did not go with the cheapest program. They went with the most expensive one because that company agreed to create a special fund. I read it, special fund to set aside funding for future equipment that they may need.
Yeah.
So what they did is why would a state entity pay a private entity who's just the phone service people 40% of the money that comes in to store it in some very obscure, obtuse fund for special equipment? What special equipment? They didn't decide. Next thing you know, they're making. I can't even tell you how much about it. I think it was way more than $65 million. I mean, I think the first quarter they made $65 million. I remember my wife was sending me the information, going, "This is what's happening," and I'm like, "Oh my God!" It was unbelievable the amount of money and the scamming. Those phones, they got 100 phones in every prison. They're running around the clock, man, and they charge $365 per call, and the phones never stop. We're on the phone. It used to be $8, $9, $10, $15 a call. We finally sued them. The prisoners sued the state, said, "How come I can call California on my cell phone and it's only freaking 90 cents to talk for an hour, but a prisoner it costs freaking $27 from a payphone?"
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It was all a scam, and
we're just about out of time here, but I want to find out where they can get your books and where they can find you.
Well, that reminds me, by the way, I was speaking of time, I will tell you in the next show, I want to tell you about a new novel that I'm writing in my head. It's a sci-fi thriller called The 10th Dimension. And it's like a time travel, different dimension. I'll tell you about it another time. But okay. You can find my books on Amazon. To Be a King, Volume 1 and 2, about a fictional mafia family, if you can see them back there. There's set in Detroit. People are comparing it to The Godfather. A lot of people say I wrote the next Godfather. So check it out. You go to my website, Gunner Detroit, Gunner Detroit, like the gun. And everything I do is there. I got a radio show. I got our thing apparel. We do custom everything to your city. Right. So make sure to check that out.
Great stuff there.
Yes, I hope you check it out. And check out my books. Check out my radio show. And we have a publishing company called White Pine Publishing Consultants, where we help authors navigate the process of aggregating their story, writing it, publishing it, and marketing their book. So if anyone hears that and they're interested, go to whitepinepublishingconsultants.com. It's on my website. You can check it out.
All right. Thank you so much, Alan. We appreciate you very much. Look forward for the next time. Okay.
Yep. You guys have a great week, and I'm going to go edit my survival video.
Sounds good. Take care.
I'll send it to you when I'm done.
All right. Great. Okay. Sounds fantastic. Thanks so much. Alan Gunner Lindbloom here on the Awake Nation. Again, GunnerDetroit.com. Check it out. It's very, the guy is fascinating. I mean, I could spend all day listening to him. He's got some great stories. Finally today, as we get ready to wrap things up, I did not see this last night, but apparently in an address from the White House carried live on television last night, President Joe Biden gave the nation the nuclear launch codes in case anything would ever happen to him. He said, folks, I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, but the fact is, I'm not always going to be around, and you need to be prepared to oversee our long-range and tactical nuclear weapons on that day, said the commander-in-chief, who added that he had been holding on to the highly classified sequence of letters and numbers until he thought the nation was ready to responsibly operate its arsenal of 5,244 warheads. Just write the codes somewhere safe so you don't lose them, because listen, if I have to go away, you're the president, understand? All you are, okay? You ready? The code is 3X52-4980. At press time, the American public had reportedly launched an intercontinental ballistic missile at East Timor. So there you have that. So just keep that in mind. That is going to do it for this edition of The Awake Nation. We do it Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern. We'll be back again tomorrow on the David Zublick channel on Rumble to do it all over again. Before we leave, Penny, please promote what you're doing this afternoon.
This afternoon, we're going to do Banana Republic News with Christi Tasker. She also has Patriots Perspective. And so if you have any questions, you can text me at 619-779-9771, and we'll see you there.
All right, sounds real good. And in the meantime, we are out of time. So we are already here. See you tomorrow. Zublick out.
Shepard out.
Goodbye for now from the Awake Nation with co-host David Zublick, Penny L.A. Shepard, and Heather Day. We invite you to watch us live on Rumble at the David Zublick channel and at theawakenation.com. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News, a 30-minute quick shot of truth with a shot of espresso, 8 a.m. to 8:30 Central, 9 a.m. to 9:30 Eastern, followed by 5 sets of 30-minute interviews with influencers who defy the mainstream narrative. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. Please join us on YouTube at The Awake Nation News for an additional 30 minutes of breaking news, posting Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central and 6 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of The Awake Nation, with co-hosts David Zublick, Penny L.A. Shepard, and Heather Day, we humbly thank our Dark Outpost and Awake Nation family. We thank you for watching The Awake Nation and ask you to join us again each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Shoop doo 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 doo, yeah. Shoop doo 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 doo, shoop doo 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 doo, yeah.